I don't know why capitalize like the weirdest letters in that. Perfect. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Let me get this sent. There's also that's a new name. I've never seen that name. Hello, welcome. If you've come before, I've never seen your name, so also first. Let's go. Perfect. I don't know where the fuck Kami is, and I'm just gonna start because we have 15 chapters to do today, which is kind of crazy, but it'll be chill. Love that. Anyway, how was everyone? How's everyone's day or night or weekend? I haven't been around in a minute, so. How's everyone doing? Once I'm done, you're putting this stream on the Costco. It's kind of criminal, but okay. I will be doing Orb after I'm done the first book, and then I'm gonna do Koi. So it's gonna be like both. I just got ready for my day, but thanks for saying I look pretty. I'll take the compliment. Even though it's kind of backhanded, I'll still take the compliment. Oh my god, also, look what I got. I got all 3 of them. So I go to the bookstore all the time and they never have them. They're always sold out. And then I keep asking and I'm like, are you gonna get them in? Are you gonna get them in? Are you gonna get them in? They're like, if we do, they sell out within like the first day or 2 that we have them because we don't get a lot of them. And then I went to the bookstore like 2 days ago and they had all 3 and I was like, yay, God bless. And it was also the last ones they had. They were about to get sold out. Look how pretty the like cover is. And I was like, oh my god, it's so nice. And then also, they have, I didn't realize they had this in them. They have like little photos of like certain things that happen in the book for certain scenes. Like where was one? Yeah, like they have Azek's Messenger. Wait, where it is. Look how cool that is. So, that's all I wanted to show you guys. I was really excited about them. And I got all 3 of them. So that was that. I worked from home. Well, thank you for working from home. I'll try and make it as good as possible. Dude, I was so happy to get them. Because it's in Canadian though, I spent a fortune on them. And I was like, really upset. Kami, I'm in the room, so unless you have a new room that you need me to join. Not sure what we're talking about right now. Perfect. There you go, I'm in it now. Yeah, I know, there's, like, pictures, and then, like, for certain, like, newspaper clippings or, like, reports, they're just created, like, as actual reports in the book, like, they're, like, kind of sectioned off. It's really cool. I really like them. I'm happy I got them, and they're just sitting up there now. But I've stalled enough. So without further ado, we have 15 chapters to get through right now. We're gonna see what happens. I'm gonna do that, and then on Thursday I'll finish, I think it's like the last 18 chapters. So let's get through, yeah, the diary pages too, which are cool. Let's get through this next little bit. Perfect. Okay, chapter 1321, the 6 special pathways. The Fool Klein slowly surveyed the area. He didn't provide an explanation to everyone as they expected. Instead, he reined in his sigh and asked with a smile, "Where do you think the 22 Beyonder pathways originated from?" This was one of the 3 most important questions in mysticism. With no consensus for the answer, every school of thought had their own theory. No one could convince anyone. Cattleya deliberated for a moment before replying. The essence of the world is knowledge, and the essence of knowledge is data. Humans are data, and the beyond characteristics of the 22 pathways are data. All things are from data, and this is how it was born. She had offered the Moses Aztec order theory, but that was not her own point of view. The 7 churches believed that beyonder characteristics originated from the original creator. He transformed into all things, including the deities, human, sea, land, and beyonder characteristics, Leonard briefly explained. Of course, this is an explanation given to deacons and above. The official beyonders below Sequence 6 don't need to know that much. As he glanced at Emlyn and said, "The life school of thought believes that the world is split into 3 levels: the material world, the world of the spirits, and the world of absolute rationality. Beyond characteristics are the projections of certain things of the world of absolute rationality into the material world and world of the spirit. Therefore, characteristics can't be destroyed, only reassembled. From the looks of it, the world of the absolute rationality that the life school of thought promotes might be referring to the river of fate." The Fool Klein thought of Willa Septon, but he remained silent and didn't interrupt the conversations between members of the Tarot Club. Emlyn returned a glance at the star and said, "As one of the rulers of the second epoch, as a sanguine believer, the beyonder characteristics do come from the original creator. Then the various characteristics accumulated and produced by the ancient god. The ancient gods then created different races." This was the sanguine's explanation for the first epoch, and Emlyn already had some doubts about it. After all, he had encountered many secrets thanks to the Tarot Club. Alger nodded slightly. Although there are many explanations for the origins of beyond characteristics, most of them point to the original creator. The Orthodox churches, Royal Order, and the City of Silver share such a belief. In other words, beyond characteristics originating from the original creator is quite a prevalent understanding, Audrey asked thoughtfully. The psychology alchemists mainly studied the mind world and sea of collective subconscious. They lacked complete theories regarding the origins of the beyond characteristics. Roughly, Alger didn't conceal his views. At this moment, the Fool Klein sighed and said, "Not all of them." And he didn't proceed to give a long story, but gave a rather vague answer. "Not all of them. The Fool means that beyond characteristics indeed originated from the original creator, but not all of them. A small number of them are special cases. As for this reason of the specialness of the planter and moon pathway, Alger instantly thought of a lot and grasped the essence of the problem. As it had nothing to do with her, Forrest continued listening leisurely at this moment. She asked curiously, "Honorable Mr. Fool, your meaning seems to be the most beyond characteristics originated from the original creator, and the 2 pathways such as planter and moon are the exception? Then where did they come from?" The Fool Klein answered simply, "The cosmos." Cosmos? Emlyn was alarmed when he heard that. He realized that the matter might be more serious than he had imagined. The Tarot Club had already shared the danger of the underground corruption of the cosmos. All the members knew that the concepts led to corruption simply from understanding it. When Audrey, Cattleya, and company looked at each other, the Fool Klein maintained his hint of sigh and added, "Not just these 2. He and the 7 Lights had always maintained their contact and had already confirmed the 6 of the beyonders of the 22 pathways belonged to outer deities. Honorable Mr. Fool, what other pathways come from the cosmos?" Audrey habitually raised her hand and asked curiously and warily. The Fool Klein replied succinctly, "Prisoner, criminal, lawyer, arbiter. The first 2 came from Mother Tree of Desire, and the latter 2, along with the nation of disorder, came from the son of chaos. Chaos gave birth to order, and order came from its own shadow. Arbiter. Forrest turned her head in surprise and glanced at Shio. She had just thought that this matter had nothing to do with her. She could only watch and not worry about it. Who knew that the trouble was right at her doorstep? Shio frowned slightly and looked at the end of the long bronze table. Honorable Mr. Fool, I don't usually sense any abnormalities, nor have I received any divine epiphanies, other than those from you. The Fool Klein smiled and said, The Arbiter and Lawyer are relatively better. According to his understanding, the influence of the Son of Chaos had both the Arbiter and Lawyer pathway wasn't deep. It was incomparable to the Mother Goddess of Depravity's influence on the Moon and Planter pathway, and the Mother Tree of Desire's influence on the Criminal and Prisoner pathway. The outer deity had gone silent, as though he had disappeared. Forrest and Shio secretly heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, they became more wary of the future. With Mr. Fool not explaining further, Emlyn composed himself and said, The uniqueness of the Planter and Moon pathway comes from the cosmos. The divine epiphanies I sensed are likely a form of corruption. Alger looked at Mr. Fool at the end of the long molten table. Seeing that he had no intention of speaking, he nodded and said, Probably so. This is a test for me. Emlyn sighed and said, I've already grasped the names of the high sequence portions of Planter and Moon pathway. I'm somewhat puzzled about the two of them. After becoming a sanguine earl and a high-ranking deacon of the Church of Earth, he obtained the corresponding clearance to access plenty of information that he had never been able to. Seeing the other members of the Tarot Club look over at the World Gammon Sparrow, gnawing at the gates of my enclosure, raised his hand and pinched his chin, Emlyn thought and said, The Moon pathway is as follows. Sequence 3, High Summoner. Sequence 2, Life Giver. Sequence 1, Beauty Goddess. The Planter pathway is as follows. Sequence 3, Pallbearer. Sequence 2, Desolate Matriarch. Sequence 1, Nature Walker. What I don't understand is the names of the two potions. Beauty Goddess and Desolate Matriarch have certain genders' inclinations. What are your thoughts on this? Oh, you sweet summer child. Oh, Emlyn. For a moment, no one from the Tarot Club spoke. They looked at each other and thought of a possibility. A few seconds later, Audrey controlled her gaze and said in deliberation, I remember that sequence 7 of the assassin pathway is called Witch. Assassins who consume this potion become witches. This is a test for me. Emlyn's lips moved slightly, unable to say a word. When he learned the name of the potions, he already had a certain premonition, but he wasn't willing to accept it. He hoped that he could obtain another explanation from the Tarot Club. Don't worry. You have a low chance of becoming an angel. Even if you can, you won't have the chance of being Beauty Goddess, Klein mumbled inwardly, but he didn't say any words of comfort. Everyone fell silent. Leonard coughed and took the initiative to say, I'll share some matters. As he spoke at a moderate pace regarding Merlin Hermes, the rebuilding of Constant City overnight, and the fully automatic wishing machine. As he spoke, he shot a glance to the World Klein. The corners of Klein's mouth twitched as he made the World Gammon Sparrow look ahead. I'll be leaving the eastern coast of Mid-Sea Shire soon. Oh, poor Emlyn. Oh, thank you for saying I look good. They were all done by Mr. World. Can he already create such miracles? As expected of an angel, a him, Audrey recalled the information the psychology alchemist counselor's Mr. Gluttony. He said that both surprised and impressed. She didn't use her spectator powers to conceal her reaction. This was because everyone had expressed the same emotions except for Mr. Starr, who clearly knew about it. Merlin Hermes, wandering machine, Forrest noted the name deep down and secretly decided to distance herself from the name whatever she heard in the future. This didn't mean that she was still afraid of Gammon Sparrow, but she knew something. It definitely wasn't safe around Gammon Sparrow, something that would always be happening in some way or another. Hi, Bullseye. Of course, an instinctive sense of fear was inevitable. It was just like how the seed of fear somewhat sown when one of the young women remained, even when one became an adult. Granting wishes for pleasure. Fully automatic wishing machine. Is this the world Gammon Sparrow's acting? Alger and Catlia had a similar thought simultaneously flash through their minds. When they thought of something ever since some time ago, the fool had made everyone pray to him in the form of a wish before granting them. He is helping the world digest the potion, or is it that he and the world are from the same pathway? After he awoke, he also exhibited similar characteristics. Little Sun said before Mr. Fool's actions were a miracle, allowing the city's residents to directly move from the Forsaken Land of the Gods to outside Bayham City. With the fact that the world Gammon Sparrow is still acting, this shouldn't be something he can do. Alger nodded indiscernibly as he made a guess about the pathway Mr. Fool was in. About to leave the eastern coast of Midseashire, then my investigation will be even easier. I can come up with a simple conclusion. At most, I can directly report that Gairman Sparrow has become a miracle invoker and is acting anyway the people who should already know and already aware. Leonard mumbled silently and didn't ask any further questions. At this moment, the world Gairman Sparrow looked around and asked, "What do you know about the king of the Blackthorn, Boros Hopkins?" I love how I just don't wear, like, a hoodie or, like, a baggy t-shirt, and I get so many compliments. It's crazy what a little effort will do. Upon hearing the world Gairman Sparrow's questions, truly. But this is honestly, here's the thing. Normally when I'm doing, like, this, like, normally when I'm doing streams, it's right after I'm finishing something. So I'm at home, and then for, like, the rest of the time, I'm just, like, wanting to relax. So this is what I normally look like day to day. I'm actually very superficial and materialistic. Surprise, surprise. I just never really cared because I was always in the comfort of my own home. And I was like, whatever, I'm just going to throw on a hoodie because I'm not doing anything after it. Or if I was doing something after it, I was going to get ready after. Upon hearing the world Gairman Sparrow, questions of other members of the Tarot Club had 3 reactions. Who is that? I seem to have heard him. He's one of the 4 kings. Who is that? Why haven't I heard of him before? Oh, I forgot to ask about the psychology alchemists. I was planning on using the more tactful method and seek some suggestions. The first reaction came from Alger, Catley, and Fors, who had lived at sea for a period of time. The second reaction came from Leonard, Emlyn, and Shio, and Derek. The third reaction belonged to Audrey alone. First off, I will never get a face tattoo. Ever. Getting no answers, the world Gairman Sparrow didn't ask further. His main goal was to use this as a reminder for Miss Justice to bring up the matter in discussion in a way that could bypass the promise she made. Of course, if Miss Justice was to seek help from Mr. Fool, Klein would also be using grafting to temporarily connect the bindings from the former subconscious to the paper figurine, providing her with the period of time. Because if I ever feel like it, I can just cover up all my tattoos with, like, clothes. If I had it on my face, that's kind of just there. Period of time that she could freely recount things. This was also a high-level application of paper figurines. Substitute with Klein current level, he could easily do it within Sephir Castle. If there were a real world, he would have to rely on the worms of spirit above the grey fog to control the curtain that provided responses. At any moment, Audrey thought for a moment and said, "Do you still remember that I once pursued the whereabouts of a mine dragon and went to a place where they had customs of worshipping dragons?" Alger, Catley, and company nodded. Only Leonard and Shio expressed their lack of knowledge in this matter. As this wasn't an important matter, Forrest didn't mention it when she first briefed Shio of the general knowledge. After that, she was frightened by the angel of imagination, Adam, and rarely talked about the secrets shared by the Tarot Club in the real world. Audrey deliberated for a moment before continuing. "It's been almost 2 years. A secret organization that doesn't trust me too much suddenly mentions this matter and has entrusted me with further investigations. They said it's a form of observation. What motives do they have?" She didn't think of the coincidence. Emlyn recovered and laughed. "This should be a test." Emlyn with his fucking test. Emlyn, not everything's a test, buddy. To him, she was still very far from reaching Sequence 1, Beauty Goddess, and he had no intention of transferring to the planetary pathway. Therefore, he didn't need to worry about the corresponding problems for such a long period of time. There was no need to worry too much about it. Emlyn's ability to say the word test shows how much he has improved. Of course, this is also because the Sanguine has done too many similar things with him, having to trouble Mr. Hangman into telling him that this is a test. The Fool Klein is very satisfied with Emlyn's answer. Of course, he didn't believe that the answer was correct. He only felt that Emlyn Alan's ability to think up to this level was already pretty remarkable. Audrey said disapprovingly, I suspect that they already know about the problematic. They have even known where my problem and which faction is involved. There's no need to test me further. After leaving the Garden of Eden, she had been thinking a lot. She remembered that Mr. World was once said that the Twilight Hermit Order wanted a war that would sweep the entire world. Based on the current situation, the goal has always been to achieve it in the past. In other words, the Twilight Hermit Order and the Angel of Imagination Adam must have been used as opportunity to gain quite a number of benefits and experience the corresponding growth. And before that, Mr. Fool informed them that Adam was even closer to the level of a deity. Combining all the information, Audrey had a preliminary judgment of the Angel of Imagination Adam had a high chance of already reaching the divine throne and becoming a Sequence Zero visionary. Even if he wasn't there yet, he wasn't too far away. If such a deity who wielded the mind domain cast his gaze over Audrey, didn't believe that her secret could be hidden. At present, she could only console herself that the leader of the Twilight Hermit Order, the mastermind behind the psychology alchemist, wouldn't place too much importance on a Sequence 4 manipulator. On the other hand, she had made all sorts of preparations to deal with the possible accidents. Perhaps the original organization is trying to figure out how many members we have in the Tarot Club and what their identities are. Emlyn replied with a smile and continued his train of thought. Audrey thought for a moment and nodded. The possibility can't be ruled out. As she said this, she shot a glance at the end of the long molten table and realized that Mr. Fool was only listening to the leisurely without giving her a correct answer. This made her feel a lot more at ease. At the same time, she silently decided that she had been more careful. She had to be able to resolve the problems herself, having already reached Sequence 4. In any of the Orthodox Church's secret organization, Sequence 4 was the strongest person in control of an area. At this moment, Alger, who had heard the conversations, proposed a brand new possibility. If the secret organization really does trust you, then it might be an excuse for them to do an observation. Their main goal is to cooperate with us, the Tarot Club, and Mr. Fool. He didn't know why Miss Justice didn't mention the psychology alchemist directly. All he could do was carefully go along with her. This is equivalent to becoming an ambassador of the Tarot Club and to the psychology alchemist. Audrey nodded slightly and said, that's also a possibility. Then what should I do next? Alger thought for a moment and said, stall for time. Good idea. Forrest and Emlyn both expressed their agreement. After Alger gave the overall strategy, he added in detail. Try to stall for time and find excuses not to go until the final moment. When you arrive there, start investigating from the periphery and use caution as an excuse to slow down your investigation. If you really can't delay any further, you can deliberately make mistakes in certain matters and create some commotion so that the Mind Dragon can detect it early and eliminate any traces. If the secret organization really has an additional motives, the longer you delay, the more they won't be able to sit still. They'll get impatient. They will expose their problems. Catlia nodded. This is the most suitable response for now. I understand. Thank you, everyone. Audrey also felt that Mr. Hangman's suggestion suited her thoughts. However, she didn't delay any certain matters. She immediately turned her head and looked at the end of the long bronze table. The table's not bronze. It's long, molten table. I don't know where the fuck I keep getting bronze from. She bowed and said, Honorable Mr. Fool, has Angel of Imagination Adam advanced to Sequence 0? Not bad to be able to be aware of at this point. The Fool Klein leaned back in his chair and chuckled. Only with the apocalypse approaching did he finally take this step. The level of the Garden of Eden has visually confirmed that Adam was definitely a visionary. Angel of Imagination Adam has become a god. The news immediately reverberated in Derek and company's minds, leaving their minds in upheaval for a long time. Indeed, Audrey pursed her lips and expressed her gratitude before asking, what kind of payment do I need to make for this answer? The Fool Klein surveyed the area and said with a smile, There's no need. It's a reminder. After this topic ended, because most of the Tarot Club members were still immersed in the impact of Adam becoming a true god, no one spoke for a moment. After a few seconds, Derek looked around and probed the city of Silver had already plowed through the surrounding fields and planted wheat and other crops, but the harvest will still take some time. I wish to know what we can do to earn gold, pounds, and purchase resources. No, I know what molten is. I know what it is. I'm just saying, I don't know where I keep getting the word bronze from, because I keep saying long bronze table. It's long molten table. Sometimes he doesn't even say anything to describe the table, it's just long table. And I have added bronze every single time. We can do it to earn gold, pounds, and purchase resources. After the initial aid, the Church of Sea God and the government of the Rorschach Archipelago stopped providing free aid. After all, the financial honestly, can't even fault you for that. That's okay. Financial strength and rather limited in this situation, the City of Silver and the Moon City each sold their batch of Beyonder characteristics and masters' hides in the exchange for a large amount of funds that could be used to purchase various resources. However, with the entrance of Forsaken Land to the Gods closed, they was unable to replenish Beyonder characteristics and monster hides. It was also impossible for the City of Silver Moon City to give up their military strength either, selling large amounts of combat resources and wasting the opportunity to nurture their descendants. Therefore, once all the gold pounds, gold, and jewelry were used up, they would undoubtedly fall into a predicament. For this reason, the 6-member council had been troubled over how to earn gold pounds from the outside world and how to establish a stable financial system. This was a little beyond their capabilities. The Beyonder characteristics in the City of Silver and Moon City had previously sold were mainly purchased by the Church of the Sea God and Morse Archipelago governments. They were used to establish official Beyonder factions under them. After all, the number of Beyonders needed to cause damage and the number of Beyonders needed to stabilize the area were completely different levels. In addition, the entire Morse Archipelago, only the Sea God Calvatu and Demigod Cardinals of the Church of Lord of Storms. Thank you. I feel very pretty today. I don't think I've ever gotten so many compliments. This is slightly insufficient for a new government, especially since the Church of Storms and the Church of the Sea God weren't allies. After hearing Little Sun pleas for help, the other members of the Tarot Club began seriously considering what the City of Silver and the Moon City representatives could do. Audrey thought for a moment and asked, "What are you best at?" "Combat," Derek replied without hesitation. Alger nodded slightly when he heard that. Although the World War has ended, law and order hasn't been resolved in the colonies in the southern continent. It's very chaotic there, and small-scale wars occur from time to time. You can try to form 2 to 3 mercenary teams and be hired by any faction. Private military contracts. Klein gave even more modern name to suggestion. This is a good idea. Eric's eyes lit up when he heard that. Alger asked again. Combat is a survival instinct. Other than this, do you still have anything you want to do? Derek replied in embarrassment. Many people wish to be chefs and brewers. I as well hope to work at candy factories. Crazy. I know I said Eric, and then afterwards I was like, I'm not even gonna correct myself. I heard it come out and I was like, we're forgetting a letter here. I know. You can see some of the tattoos. After hearing the City of Silver citizens' wishes, and though suddenly surfaced in Klein's mind, why is everything related to food? Alger thought for a moment and said to Derek, "You can make people with such thoughts join the industry association BAM. Seek out suitable teachers through the association. Directly invite people with special ties in such fields to teach the new City of Silver providers generous salaries. Of course, the prerequisites is that you have to get the residents to grasp the language of the Roast Archipelago as soon as possible. On the basis of Loanese, Ancient Thasag, and Dutanese have been taught too." After the hangman finished speaking, the Hermit Catlia gave her suggestion. Other than organizing the mercenary teams, you can also try to apply for civil jobs at various cities of the Roast Archipelago to handle supernatural matters. Although, I'm actually covered in tattoos. Yeah. I have quite a few. I think I have 16 or 18. And they're big too. My whole stomach is covered. The chance of someone being selected... though the Roast Archipelago government and the Church of the Sea God had obtained a batch of Beyonder characteristics and the corresponding potion formulas from the City of Silver and the Moon City, they were unable to nurture enough Beyonders in a short period of time. Sequence 9 was relatively still alright. The chances of someone being selected for the god's mental strength and the physique to lose control from consuming the potions were actually very small. If one were to further advance, acting might not necessarily be successful, and it also requires time. Under such circumstances, as long as the residents of the City of Silver became members of the official factions, they wouldn't be worried about losing their jobs in the future. Of course, the Roast Archipelago's government would definitely control the number of applicants. The City of Silver wouldn't be able to completely resolve everyone's employment problems using this route. Klein agreed with Ma'am Hermit's suggestion. Furthermore, he believed that there was a need for him to give a revelation to Donitz, allowing the Roast Archipelago government and the Church of the Sea God to increase the number of official Beyonders to a certain range. This wasn't to help the City of Silver's residents and the majority of the deformed people in the Moon City to find jobs, but to deal with the impending apocalypse. The deeper corruption of the outer deities and the gradual increased frequency of supernatural incidences. At that moment, Catley glanced at Miss Justice and continued to speaking to Derek. You should now have a large amount of liquid funds. You can try to invest in the mines, spice plantations, farms, and purchase fertile land and forests and rich produce. They're all very cheap right now. Yes, although the Church of Lord of Storms can still influence the archipelago, and although the new government promises to protect the local businesses, there is still a large number of people from Lowen, Faceac, and Intis who lack confidence. They wish to cash out and return to their countries as soon as possible. That oracle named Donitz recently bought a spice plantation. That oracle named Donitz. My boy's just going up in life. Derek recalled what he had heard before and immediately felt enlightened. Catley's suggestion gave other inspirations. Audrey immediately added, when negotiating, it's best if you invite some professional lawyers. If not, you'll be fooled easily. Well, if you think there's a need, you can bring along psychanalyst from the city. Psychanalyst from the city. Also, you have a medium-sized port that can develop the corresponding economy. While the official Beyonders of the Roast Archipelago government and the Church of the Sea God are lacking in general knowledge, you can set paid classes designed for outsiders of the new City of Silver's savant schools. Well, remove the knowledge and will easily clash with other Orthodox churches. The railway connecting to the City of Silver and the other cities must be built as soon as possible. Derek was taken aback when he heard all that. He hurriedly raised his hand and said, Sorry, I need to memorize what was just said. I forgot that he has no foundation in economics. Audrey reflected on herself, closed her mouth, and smiled as she signaled for little son to seek help from Mr. Fool. Aww. After Derek, I love Derek. He's so cute. And he's also a child. Like, I think we're all forgetting that Derek is, 14 years old? 16 years old? Give him a break. Give him a minute. After Derek conjured the pen and paper, he wrote down the previous suggestions. Emlyn, Audrey, and the Star, Leonard, and the other members of the Tarot Club offered their ideas one after another. They also rebutted their suggestions and weren't mature or pragmatic enough. Yeah, so he's 16 years old. Can we just pause? This is a literal child. This intense scene lasted for nearly half an hour before ending. Derek looked at the adequately thick pieces of paper in front of him and couldn't help but smile. He seems to have the beautiful future of the City of Silver. Sitting at the end of the long molten table, the Fool Klein sighed for some baffling reason, and his heart felt a lot heavier. If one didn't consider how the apocalypse was about to be a decade away, the discussion would have been pleasing regarding the promised future and the awaited City of Silver. However, the arrival of the apocalypse wouldn't change because of the will of humans. Even saints and angels couldn't do that. Looking away from the paper from him, Derek deliberately said, We have already built the temple and cathedral meant for Mr. Fool. We wish to prioritize the various cities of the archipelago. What do we need to do to pay attention to it? What do we need to pay attention to? Elder frowned and said, Have you written a Holy Bible? Have you designed the outer of massive prayer details? Yes, Derek nodded heavily. This was because, based on his knowledge of the miracles Mr. Fool had shown, combined with the religious scriptures left behind by the Creator, furthermore, the City of Silver had also prayed to the Fool, seeking his thoughts on the matter. His attitude was a tacit agreement. Has the internal system of the church been set up? Elder continued asking. Derek subconsciously looked at Mr. Fool, who was shrouded in layers of grayish-white fog, and turned around. Currently, it follows that the internal system of the other churches and the chief of our 6-member council will hold the role of archbishop, and the number of enthusiastic citizens have been appointed to the bishop and the priest. The City of Silver didn't set up the organization and deal with the beyonder matters of the church. Since most of them were beyonders, and there were already corresponding organizations in place previously, Alger saw that Mr. Fool didn't object nor agree. He controlled the desires and to teach and nodded slightly. You can try that out first. He paused for a moment before saying, However, there are 2 things to take note of. First, don't badmouth the other churches, lest they be conflict. Second, it's the respect of the current oracle. In the absence of the leader appointed by Mr. Fool, the oracle is too representative of a deity. Third, don't engage in religious harassment during proselytizing. Besides, I have serious doubts about the equivalence of the bishops and priests of the City of Silver. I'll need to get Donnets to find professionals to train them. The fool Klein, who was listening quietly, muttered inwardly. He didn't express his opinions on the Holy Bible written by the City of Silver because it was a little awkward, but he objected to certain descriptions. It would also be damage to the fool's image. With this in mind, Klein couldn't help but lampoon. Perhaps one day, when Will Septim reads the Holy Bible of the Church of the Fool, he would blurt out in surprise, "When did I become an angel under the fool?" Bro, I just realized something. Not Alger. Azic's been asleep this whole time. Like, so much has happened, and Klein's just been giving him, like, little notes, like, sending him little notes of everything. When he wakes up, he's gonna be so confused. Like, I wonder when he's going to wake up. I miss him so much. But I'm like, how funny would it be if Azik wakes up after, like, all of this is done, and Klein's advanced to godhood, and the Church of the Fool is everywhere, and the apocalypse has already been taken care of, and, like, all of this has happened, and he just wakes up and he just has, like, a stack of letters, and has to just sift through the last, like, year to 2 years. And he's like, okay, sounds good. What did I miss? Then Leonard's grandpa, where was I? In his, he didn't express his own opinion on the Holy Bible written by the City of Silver, under the Fool. Then Leonard's grandpa, the awakened Mr. Azik, and Miss Messenger, who have been trying hard to recover, will add, "Me too?" After the conversations regarding the City of Silver and the Moon City came to an end, Catley looked around in anticipation and said, "Which of you has a sequence 3 beyond characteristics of the mystery prior pathway?" She had already digested the mysticologist potion of quite some time, but she had only obtained the portion formula of Moses' Aztec order. She was still far from obtaining the beyond characteristics of the main ingredient, although she was one of the 10 key members of the Moses Aztec order. The corresponding resources became more valuable and higher the sequence. Even an ancient organization wouldn't squander them freely. Furthermore, Cattleya came to the dawn and was less affected by the hidden sage, so she wasn't the trusted. Stop talking. So, how about you shut up? Affected by the hidden sage, so she wasn't that trusted in the Moses Aztec order. To Cattleya, who had already digested the potion a long time ago, using the Snake of Fate's blood to advance to a mysticologist sequence 3 should have been relatively easier stage. However, she was bottlenecked by the ingredients, or it might not even be possible for her to obtain one for years or even more than a decade. Hence, she had no choice but to seek the help of the Tarot Club. Derek recalled the demigod characteristics of the City of Silver, and slowly shook his head. At that moment, the World Gammon Sparrow said with a hoarse chuckle, "I suggest you ask Queen Mystic directly. Bernadette had already become a sequence 2 angel. If she had an additional clairvoyant beyond a characteristic in her, she could attempt to separate it. Of course, Klein couldn't be certain that the sage potions the Queen Mystic consumed contained the previous sequence 3's and sequence 4 characteristics. Ask the Queen. Catley got some clues from the world's answer to suspect that something had happened to the Queen." Okay, she controlled the urge to ask. Klein continually controlling the world said to Ma'am Hermit, "I have a long-term mission. Help me collect information regarding the hidden sage suddenly coming back to life. You can raise the corresponding rumination of now, or you can wait until there is need for it in the future." Klein was still puzzled over this matter. Although it could be described as uniqueness suddenly coming to life, it shouldn't have happened a long time ago if it was possible. Cattleya thought for a moment and said, "That wouldn't be an issue." After another round of exchanges, the tarot gathering ended and members returned to the real world. In the captain's cabin of the future, Cattleya nudged the heavy glasses on her nose bridge and thought about how to write the letter to the Queen. During this process, she strolled to the window and saw Frank Lee promoting the alcohol-free volcano beer brewed by sea microorganisms to the crew. He really has the drive. Just as Cattleya sighed, she suddenly frowned. At the Tarot Club just now, Mr. Fool mentioned that the Planter and Moon are 2 rather special pathways. They come from the cosmos and they are prone to corruption. The divine epiphanies they received are questionable. Frank is a beyonder of the planter pathway. Besides, he once complained that the Church of Earth Mother didn't understand the true will of the merciful Mother. Callie's eyes were blocked by the heavy lens, narrowed slightly. Can we... Nothing better happened to my boy, frankly. Like, I will actually be... I'll be super upset. I'll be super, super upset. That's okay. I've been streaming for a minute. We all good. You're here now. After staring at the deck below, Cattleya left the captain's cabin and walked to the cabin's entrance. She waited until Frank Lee carried a bucket of alcohol-free beer over. Captain, do you want a cup? Frank raised the large bucket of beer in one hand. Cattleya shook her head firmly and asked in a seemingly casual manner, "Is this the will of the benevolent mother?" "No," Frank said rather seriously. "I just feel like drinking liquor that has been altered by the modified sedative isn't good for the body. I hope that they'll be able to accept this drink that has no alcohol inside. Other than the smell of alcohol, of course, this is only a preliminary result, and it doesn't involve liquor. After all, it can't use the distillation to enhance its taste." Cattleya was momentarily at a loss for words as she nudged the heavy glasses on her nose bridge. After 2 seconds of silence, she said, "Do you hear the benevolent mother's voice in the divine epiphanies?" "No." Frank didn't think much as he shook his head. Cattleya secretly heaved a sigh of relief. At that moment, Frank casually added, "The benevolent mother will is in the ears of the wheat, in the milk of the cows, and in the growth of the mushrooms, and in every corner of nature. One can feel it without the need to experience the divine epiphany." Cattleya's gaze immediately shot towards Frank's eyes. She didn't find any sign of badness, only pureness. Without another word, she nodded slightly and walked forward. She crossed Frank Lee and arrived on the deck. After taking in the sea's vista for a few minutes, Cattleya returned to the captain's cabin. She unfolded the letter and wrote, "I wonder what's your take regarding Frank's actions. He claims that he doesn't obtain any divine epiphanies and believes that the benevolent mother will is hidden in every nook and cranny of nature." Oh my god. This was a letter to Garamond Sparrow. Cattleya believed that just by adding such a question, he would be able to understand what she was implying. After folding the letter, she took out the gold coin and began to summon the terrifying messenger. "Ooh, Ma'am Hermit wrote me a letter immediately after the terror gathering ended. It shouldn't be related to the hidden sage. It can't be that fast." Klein was on a cruise ship traveling to the Tussock River. Wearing a black robe, he took the letter from his messenger's mouth and opened it. He finished reading all the contents with a glass. This, Klein frowned slightly. Perhaps it was because Frank had shown enough danger and madness in his usual behavior that he had actually neglected the possibility of the druid being affected by the mother goddess of depravity. Are they gonna kill Frank? Are they gonna kill Frank? Please no. In his usual behavior that he had actually neglected the possibility of the druid being affected by the mother goddess of depravity. Frank had once been placed on trial by the Church of Earth Mother for a forbidden experiment, and then he was placed on the wanted list. If Earth Mother hadn't been corrupted by the Church of Earth's operations were rather normal, then it means that they believe that Frank is problematic. However, I know. However, if there's concrete evidence, Frank, who went to the court, probably wouldn't have lived. Klein's mind raced. He attempted to find clues based on the understanding of Frank. There's no problem with the relevant actions. The prayer posture and the usual praying gestures are different. It's just like how when the Beyonders of Church of Evernight pray, they won't draw 4 stars on the chest at times. At most, they'll just go through the final motions. Apart from the small problem, there's something wrong with Frank in every aspect. He's like a child raised by the mother goddess of depravity. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Klein had 2 contradictory guesses. Either Frank's corruption is very hidden, making it impossible for the Church of Earth Mother Tribunal to be certain, or he wasn't affected by the mother goddess of depravity at all. It's purely because he has mental problems that made him look like a blessed of the evil god. Regardless of which guess it was, Klein believed that the subsequent development wouldn't be good. He remembered very clearly that Frank's mushroom experience had been breaking through because he had been given an assessment who believed in the primordial moon, and the primordial moon was one of the manifestations of the mother goddess of depravity. Oh my god. This also meant that from the fourth, regardless of whether Frank had any problems in the past, he could very well have entered the eyes of mother goddess of depravity. This wasn't a good thing. Of course, I can't eliminate the possibility that Frank is excessively crazy, causing the mother goddess to just look away. Klein mumbled in amusement, hoping to make the best out of it. This was nearly impossible. The horror and strength of the foreign god wasn't something a demigod could understand. Klein even suspected that it wasn't for the overtly intense response that would destroy the anchors of the deities, allowing them to attack each other in a frenzy, resulting in the bionic characteristics to gather and awaken the oldest one. The outer deities might have already destroyed the sun and destroyed the ecosystem of the world. They weren't able to do anything about the oldest one's barrier, but they were free to do anything to the stars outside the barrier. Something Klein wondered if the automatically observed sun was real or not. Perhaps it was just the eternal blazing sun that hung himself there. So far, there shouldn't be any major problems with the mushrooms that Frank invented. I've already dealt with them above the Great Fog. Furthermore, the residents of the city of Silver and Moon City didn't show any abnormalities. Yes, after they left the Forsaken Land of the Gods, they abandoned farming mushrooms because they lacked monster corpses and had sufficient food. The more Klein thought about it, the more fearful he felt towards it. If it wasn't for the fact that the Mother Goddess of Depravity's powers that could penetrate the original barrier was still extremely limited, Klein suspected that the cards of blasphemy and the mushrooms would have left him corrupted. Sefer Castle would have unknowingly changed owners. These were things that had been placed above the Great Fog for a long time and didn't undergo any special sealing. Compared to the flamboyant Mother Tree of Desire, the usually low-key Mother Goddess was far more terrifying. Mr. Dor and the Emperor were silently corrupted by her, as expected of an existence that stands atop the outer deities. Despite losing two Beyonder pathways and Sephra, Klein sighed inwardly. He took out the pen and paper and prepared to write the reply to Catlia. At that moment, he realized that Miss Messenger had been waiting by his side the entire time without returning to the spirit world. The 8 eyes, the 4 heads stared unblinkingly. What do you think of Frank? Klein hesitated before asking. I mean, other than his nickname. The 4 heads of Renette Tinker's hands spoke out one after another. He only appears like an adopted son of an outer deity. In other words, Frank wasn't affected by the Mother Goddess of Depravity. Previously, he was simply crazy. Klein heaved a long sigh of relief. He then asked, what about now? As Franklin summoned Renette Tinker every time he wrote the letter to Gammon Sparrow, Klein believed that Miss Messenger, who had a very high status, had a relatively clear, accurate grasp of the state of the Mushroom King. I don't know either. Renette Tinker's 4 heads answered one after another. Following that, she added, his body temporarily hasn't been corrupted. Does that mean that you can't tell if his psyche is affected? That's right. Other than his low level, Frank Usually's actions resemble more of an evil god than me. Klein lampooned as he took out a gold coin and flicked it. With his medium, he quickly entered the dream divination. At the same time, he was prepared to activate Sefer Castle to cut off the outer deities from watching. Scenes flashed past as Klein saw several futures. Yes, the greatest threat right now is that the primordial moon believer... Oh my god, okay. Crazy shot in the dark thought. What if she uses Frankly's body to ascend onto the world? Like, does the whole, like once Frank turns into, like, does Frank ever get to the point where he turns into a woman? And then does she, like, do what she did with, like, Lenivus when that whole thing was going on and just, like, take over Frank's body? Because he'd be, like, a pretty good candidate for that, I feel like. I also feel like, weirdly, he'd be down. I don't know. I really hope nothing happens to Frankly. I really hope nothing happens to Frankly. Truly. I don't know. Either the baby thing or when Frank turns into a woman. Either one I feel like would work. At the same time, no, because remember when, I think this was when Klein killed Lenivus, and then the true creator was like in his belly because they were trying to ascend and do that whole thing. They also did it with Magos as well, and then I guess it could also be like a whole Trissy thing as well. They've done it with Cuttlefish has done it with a few people. At the same time, he was prepared to activate Sepher Castle to cut out the outer deities from watching. Scenes flashed past as Klein saw several futures. Yes, the greatest threat right now is the Primordial Moon Believer. I have to separate him from Frank, or things will become extremely troublesome and dangerous. If Frank doesn't come into contact with anything related to the Mother Goddess of Depravity in the future and doesn't advance to demigod, there shouldn't be any problems. If only one of these two contradictions is satisfied, the chance of the ancient accident happening will increase greatly. If both are satisfied at the same time, I can see developments at all. Klein snapped awake as he interpreted the results of the divination. Perhaps because Frank's level was too low, he wasn't too affected by it. Klein's divination happened smoothly without encountering any danger. He silently exhaled and caught the gold coin. Then he realized that Miss Messenger's red eyes were focused on the gold coin in his palm. Klein twitched his eyebrows, expressing his doubt. It has Sepher Castle's aura. Renette Tinker's four blonde, red-eyed heads shook up and down. This is one of the 5 gold coins I often use for divination. It has already been tainted by the aura of Sepher Castle. This way, it can be considered a mystical item to a certain extent. However, the effects will be drained over time. Klein carefully looked at the gold coin in his hand and made a rough judgment based on the spiritual intuition. The gold coin could increase the accuracy of divination and enhance the user's ability to resist any interference. To Klein, this was a pleasant surprise. He decided to use the actual gold coin rather than the historical projection. Receiving the gold coin, Klein wrote to Ma'am Hermit and handed her thoughts to Renette Tinker. After giving Gairman Sparrow's messenger another gold coin, Catley unfolded the letter and quickly scanned it. After reading it, she felt her shoulders weigh down a little. Without any delay, Catley took out another piece of paper and wrote, Your Majesty, I dreamed of you finding a primitive island and successfully returning. The situation of this descent of the Emperor is getting worse. If he continues staying on the future, I suspect he'll go crazy. If you don't mind, I want to send him over to you. What we need to take note of is that, although he claims he no longer believes in the primordial moon, no one has ever confirmed that. My greatest worry is now that it's difficult to obtain the main ingredients of clairvoyant. If you have returned, I wish to find a time to return the magic wishing lamp to you. Okay. Do we have a time jump? I wouldn't be surprised if we have a time jump, because I feel like we would have to have a time jump at some point. But do we just have one right now? Okay. City of Generosity, Bam, in a rented apartment lit up by gas lamps. Verdue Abraham, who was wearing a pair of gold-rimmed glasses, held a thick stack of information. He was reading seriously under the dim light, drawing symbols and recording what he deemed useful information. Got it. Symbols and recording what he deemed useful information from time to time. He left Lowen and came to the Rorschach Archipelago mainly to avoid being watched by Dorian and the other family members and focus on studying mysticism. He wanted to find an effective way to save ancestor Bethel Abraham, or rather reduce the difficulty of the known ritual. However, he hadn't made any headway after half a year. It was as though he had no choice other than hunting a bizarre sorcerer, a parasite, and a secret sorcerer. This made Verdue rather depressed, but he was clear about the dangers a Grade Zero sealed artifact was. Even if he was willing to sacrifice himself, he wasn't able to control it fully. He was unable to guarantee the final outcome. And the most important thing was that he couldn't find the bizarro sorcerers or parasites. They were all saints that were hard to track, with styles that were known for being strange and bizarre. Verdue put down the stack of documents and in his hand muttered silently, "Don't tell me I can only place my hopes on the fool like Dorian or the others." Upon thinking of the fool, Verdue couldn't help but frown. Oh my god, give it a sec. Fucking weird. Yeah. Is it back? Don't piss me off right now. Okay. Yeah, like I saw it was like dropped all the way for no fucking reason. In his hand and muttered silently, "Don't tell me the only place my hopes on the fool like Dorian and the others." Can someone type that I hope he enjoys the story? My hopes on the fool like Dorian and the others. Upon thinking of the fool, Verdu couldn't help but frown. This was because there were more and more half-giants promoting the fool's faith in Bayham City. So much so that even he, who rarely went out, heard of it. This made him suspect that he had arrived near the headquarters of the Church of the Fool. If it wasn't for the mysterious knowledge that was spread in secret in the Rorschach Archipelago, was far beyond Verdu's expectations. Many of them were things that the Abraham family didn't know of. Thank you. And were extremely useful. He would have left Bayham last month and headed to the southern continent. I can't stay here any longer. I need to buy ship tickets to East Balam as soon as possible. Just as Verdu made a decision, he began to waver. Dorian and the Foo probably won't expect me to hide the area that's under their headquarter jurisdiction. Emperor Ozell once said that the most dangerous place is the safest place. After some hesitation, Verdu put down the documents and switched off the light. With the moonlight from the window, he walked towards the bedroom. At the corner of the balcony room, a figure suddenly jumped out of the darkness and jumped over the railings. The figure was like a feather, light and weightless. It landed in a height of 10 meters above ground, without making a single sound. Right on the heels of that, the figure moved through the shadows in the vicinity of the Church of the Sea God and went up the bell tower. Then he took out a pen and paper and wrote the report on tonight's surveillance before stuffing it into a crack. After the figure left, the howling wind suddenly sounded above the bell tower 15 minutes later. The report was pulled out of the crack by an invisible hand. As it swept through the wind, it rose and fell into the distance like a bat spreading its wings in the dark night. Not long after, the report plummeted like it had been bound to a rock, landing in the hand of an extended out in the hidden corner of the garden. The hand belonged to the Cardinal of the Church of Storms, Alger Wilson. He then unfolded the report and began to read it in the darkness. He was completely unaffected by the lack of light. Even in the dark sea, Alger could see everything around him clearly. Verdu had become more resolute in intentions of leaving Bayham. Alger nodded indiscernibly as he came to a conclusion. Over the past half a year, he had been monitoring the members of the Abraham family according to Mr. Fool's instructions, but he hadn't noticed anything abnormal about him. After Verdu left the Rorschach Archipelago, his mission would be completed. However, Alger didn't wish for it to end just like that. He believed that he had made enough contributions. All he did was simply monitor Sequence 7 Beyonders without any special characteristics. The Hermit had already obtained the Sequence 3 Beyonder characteristics from Queen Mystics and had gathered the corresponding supplementary ingredients and was busy preparing the ritual. This made Alger deeply stressed. Of course, he had also done many things according to Mr. Fool's intentions, but even he felt that there was a huge difference from doing those tasks with the identity, status, and the strength of a sea god. For a moment, Alger wanted to use all sorts of methods to force Verdu Abraham to expose himself, but in the end he gave up on the idea. This was because he couldn't be sure of Mr. Fool's attitude towards the target. Previously, when the city of Silver Moon City sold Beyonder characteristics and the potion formulas, Alger had purchased some of the tarot clubs. He had used it to secretly nurture the team of Beyonders who were loyal to him. This was how he had people monitoring Verdu. Certainly, this less than 10-member team was mostly at Sequence 9, while only a small number of them had been promoted to Sequence 8. Asking for when Alger had obtained the money and purchasing Beyonder characteristics of the potion formula, the answer is very simple. As the Cardinal of the Church Diocese, Alger could easily save a sum of money for himself, and during this period of time, the materials, farms, and spice plantations and factories of the Rorschach Archipelago were sold at below intrinsic value. As long as one had the funds to buy them, they could earn a lot after a short period of time. More importantly, the Church of the Storm's headquarters was quite interesting in the Beyonder characteristics and potion formulas sold by the Church of Silver and Moon City. They provided a large sum of money for their purchases. The go-betweens was without a doubt the Cardinal of the Rorschach Diocese, Alger Wilson. It was understandable that some losses were inevitable during such situations. Reining in his thoughts, Alger... Yeah, dude, rein in your fucking thoughts. Take a minute, take a breath, rein in your thoughts, please. Reining in his thoughts, Aldrich decided to sell some mysticism knowledge in Bam's Beyonder circles, though his shadow guards, he wanted to bait Verdue Abraham to keep his vicinity as long as possible. The main reason is that the City of Silver preaching has frightened the gentleman. Aldrich shook his head and muttered inwardly. He then destroyed the reports in his hand and walked back to the cathedral. The sky has just lit up. The young man walked out of the motel, leisurely enjoying the scenery in Bam's morning. He had just brought the Tenia beverage and was packaged with fruit shells, and suddenly felt a huge shadow appear beside him. The youth turned his head and looked bit by bit, only to find a 2.5-meter tall giant walking over. Perfect. We good. Oh, thank you and bye. Walking over. Don't piss me off. Excuse me, sir. Do you have a moment to talk about our Lord? No. Cause not Derek trying to convert people to Mormonism. Fuck was that? That took me out. That was really funny. Excuse me, sir. Do you have a moment to talk about? I can't even say it. Holy fuck. No, I did not expect Cuttlefish to do this. And I should have. This is on me. Excuse me, sir, do you have a moment to talk about our Lord and Savior, Mr. Fool? The half-giant bent his back and tried his best to make a smile appear admirable. No! The youth drank a mouthful of Tenia and pointed to the side. He smiled and nodded, sure, but not here. He then walked to a place where they wouldn't be in the way. The seemingly oppressive half-giant followed warmly. Go ahead. The youth didn't hide his curiosity at all. The muscular half-giant's expression turned solemn. Oh my god, that's crazy. What the fuck? Go away. Got it. Okay. There you go. They use their spells to stop it. No, it's because, when I get a phone call, for some reason, it just, like, crashes everything. Because my phone is connected to my laptop, so it just, like, takes away. And normally I have it on Do Not Disturb, but I forgot to put it on Do Not Disturb today. And that's my bad. So that's on me. Yeah. I know. It's because I actually didn't listen to the teachings of the Fool hard enough. And that's what it is. Is it back yet? Let me know when it's back. I'll just continue. Is it like gone now? I might just have to restart it. That's my bad. Possibly, maybe. I don't know. Okay. It'll be fine. It's back. Perfect. Honestly, piss me off. Pretty sure it was my brother calling too. And I'm like, why are you fucking calling me? Go away. Love you, but why are you calling me? I'll just wait till it like picks back up. It should be fine now. Okay. Let's get back to the preaching. He then walked to the place where they wouldn't be in the way. The seemingly impressive half-giant followed warmly. Go ahead. The youth didn't hide his curiosity at all. The muscular half-giant's expression turned solemn. My lord claims to be the fool in the past, the present, and also the future. He was a great ruler who dominates the spirit world. He is also the king of yellow and black who wields good luck. He is also the landmark when every living being seeks eternal life. My lord lives above the real world and the spirit world. His benevolence spreads across heaven and the land, where the total of 6 angels under him. The angel of Mercury is the embodiment of fate, my lord's most cherished angel. The angel of death has followed my lord for the longest period of time and is the consul of the underworld. The angel of redemption is the lord's bugle, the messenger of his revelations. The angel of life is the crystallization of wisdom itself. She is the instructable spirituality and resides in everyone's body. Upon hearing that, the youth laughed. Your lord is really impressive. He actually has so many angels to serve him. Crazy. Oh, thank you. I haven't gotten any slander today. Everybody's been so nice today. I'm like, I'll take it. Not only that, the half-giant replied gently, there's also the angel of retribution beside the Lord's throne. He is the Lord's light, the Lord's rage, and the Lord's palm. It's all the judge of the fallen and the ones who aren't chaste. What the fuck? In contrast to the angel of retribution is the angel of time. He is the king of the ancient times. He eventually submitted to my lord and now strikes the bell of heaven. Are we talking about Amon? Bro, the propaganda, though. Impressive. The youth secretly sighed. Upon hearing such a response, the half-giant couldn't help but smile. Then he described the various miracles that Mr. Fool had performed as succinctly as possible. Finally, he said, it's already been 15 minutes. I won't waste your time. If you're interested, you can go to the Fool's Cathedral on the 16th Phelps Street. This is the biggest cathedral in Bayham City. The rest are still in planning. The young man nodded. I'll pay a visit if I'm free. After watching the half-giant turn and leave, the youth took out a crystal Bro, no, I wasn't ready. Took out a crystal monocle from his pocket and wore it on his right eye. The half-giant walked straight back to the restaurant and changed to the chef's attire. Baldur, you went proselytizing again. The restaurant owner asked with a smile. With the industry association recommendation, the half-giant. Also, I think it's so funny that this little child who's preaching the word of the fool just went up to Amon and was like, hey, did you know that the angel of time is this guy's bitch? Did you know that? And he's like, wow, interesting. I actually didn't. This is the first I'm hearing about it. Oh my god. The half-giant walked straight into the restaurant and changed into the chef's attire. When the industry association recommended this half-giant to learn culinary skills from the restaurant, he had been rather reluctant. He always felt that the other party could kill him with just a swing of his arms, and he didn't seem like someone with culinary talent. I know. However, he was now very pleasant with Baldur. Not only was he humble, obedient, and willing to take hardships, he was quite an intimidating demeanor. This scared off the gangsters who had placed their sights on the restaurant. The only problem was that he would go out every morning to proselytize the Fool. Of course, the restaurant owner couldn't say anything since he wasn't within working hours, so he didn't mind. Baldur smiled honestly and walked to the kitchen and said to his good friend, Bon, who had come from the Moon City to seek refuge with him, I can teach you how to roast fish today. Bon looked rather normal. His eyes appeared awkward, one looking up and the other looking down. I shouldn't laugh. That was mean. He was one of the citizens of the Moon City who wasn't very deformed, and he had a courage to interact with people outside. He nodded. I have to pray in a moment. The Mr. Fool sent a revelation to get all the residents of the Moon City. I know. No, I feel really bad. I just wasn't expecting him to have, like, his eyes like that. It's really sad. It's really sad. It just was a little bit shocking. Mr. Fool sent a revelation to get him to the residents of the Moon City to pray to him. At 9 a.m, we are to wish that there is no longer deformed. See? He's fixing it. Okay? 9-part expose about how I'm an awful human being. No, I never said that, okay? We're taking words out of my mouth that were never even spoken and filling context that was never implied. No! Bro, Cuttlefish literally just said that this man has googly eyes and one of the googly eyes is stuck up here and the other one is drooping down. Like, can we stop for a second? I'm well aware that the Moon City people are a little bit fucked up because they went through a lot of hardship and got mutated, okay? I wasn't expecting it. Regarding the matter of praying to the moon, Mr. Fool, Baldur raised both hands and feet in agreement. He didn't have any intention of pressing Bon. He prayed for more than a minute after walking up to the morning before sleeping at night. He would thank Mr. Fool for bringing the pure sunlight, delicious food, and life with no... Easy, no! What the hell? What the hell, man? Don't be doing that. I saw Dara Expose video drops tomorrow, and I didn't see who said it, and I was assuming it was one of these other fucks, and then I look and I see it's your name. Your expose video drops tomorrow. Actually, if we want to go back and look at the stuff that you've said, if I'm going down, I'm dragging you with me. Regarding the matter of praying to Mr. Fool, Baldur raised both hands and feet in agreement. He didn't have any intention of pressing Bon. He prayed for more than a minute after waking up in the morning and before sleeping at night. He would thank Mr. Fool for bringing the pure sunlight, delicious food, and life of no despair. Alright, I'll prepare the ingredients for today first. Baldur smiled as he nodded at Bon. A few minutes later, he brought many bags of ingredients into the kitchen. He was carrying a few rolls of curtains. At this moment, Bon found a chair and sat down. He sincerely prayed to Mr. Fool. The great ruler who controls the spirit world, the fool that doesn't belong to his era, I wish to be blessed by you. I hope that you can fulfill my wish of escaping my deformity. In the Cathedral of Philip City Street, the several areas in Bayam, in the new city of Silver, and the Moon City, this was located in the forest. Prayers echoed softly simultaneously. The extremely self-conscious Shin, Bruce, and company vaguely guessed that Mr. Fool was planning on granting. I'm not! It's because I feel really awkward and uncomfortable because I previously laughed. That's why. And I didn't want to do it again. That's what it is. I felt really uncomfortable because I laughed in the initial, and I felt bad. Granting such a wish, they prayed, their bodies trembled, unable to control themselves. Okay, here's the thing. We all know that in probably like 3 chapters, I'm going to be sitting here crying because they're going to be healed and it's going to be really emotional. So don't fucking even with me right now. They yearned to be like normal people. They were also looking forward to the bustling and lively BAM. They yearned for the grilled fish made from, secret recipes and candy factories and delicacies from all over the world. They yearned for a life to drink, chat, sing, and dance. In the ancient palace above the great fog, the fool Klein, who was sitting at the end of the long bronze table, saw bits of pure light up one after another, forming the majestic sea and stars in front of him. The prayers overlapped and echoed inside Zephyr Castle as ripples appeared. Klein closed his eyes and took in for a few seconds. He raised his right hand and bent his middle finger, wrapping the edge of the long bronze molten. It's not bronze! The long molten table. In an invisible force spread out like waves on the surface of the water, it surged into every prayer point of light and landed on the resplendence of the moon city. Shin suddenly felt something and raised her hand to the touch of the middle of her face. The next second, she felt her nose. She finally has her nose back. No, because it's just like, got your nose. It's like, no! When she was a kid, someone got her nose and then just never gave it back. I'm so sorry. She instantly closed her eyes, bent down, and pressed her forehead to the ground. She couldn't help but praise Mr. Fool. The praise around her grew louder and louder, becoming more and more uniform. Rue's eyes separated. Bond's eyes became symmetrical, and the moon city... You don't defend me. You don't know. No, you don't. Here's the thing. You don't defend me on this. I'm being a dick. You don't. No. She instantly closed her eyes, bent down, and pressed her forehead to the ground. She couldn't help but praise Mr. Fool. The praises around her grew louder and louder, becoming more and more uniform. Rue's eyes separated, Bond's eyes became symmetrical, and the Moon City, even deformed person who were ugly because of the traits they inherited, had broken through their original restrictions, and their bodies were transforming towards a state of normalcy. At this moment, being the new Moon City in the new city of Silver, or BAM, they heard the bells of the cathedral ringing. The ethereal gong of the bell reverberated in the hearts of everyone in Moon City. It rang to the ears of every person who heard it, as though they could cleanse their souls and bring them the most genuine feeling towards life. The tears of Shin, Roos, and company held back finally flowed out. They felt their minds and bodies turn tranquil, no one longer having a speck of dust tainting them. They subconsciously raised their heads and cast their gaze towards the source of the gong. They discovered that it came from the beyond New Moon City, an unknown distance away from where they were. A miracle. I thought, why do we have this music playing? A thought suddenly popped into the minds of the Moon City residents. In the new city of Silver that was connected to them, Waith, Chairmont, and company cast their gaze onto the... Oh my god, I didn't realize this was up. Cast their gaze onto the distance, they cast their gaze towards BAM. The gong came from there. Praise Mr. Fool. They mumbled at the same time, and they pressed their right palm to their left chest. In BAM City, Bon adjusted his posture with the Balder, who had tears streaming down their face. Their face Philip Street and towards the cathedral they belonged to, Mr. Fool. They listened attentively and gratefully to the holy chimes of heaven. However, above the great fog, the fool Klein was somewhat astonished and confused. The sudden chiming of the bells wasn't within his plans. He then turned his gaze to the Fool's Cathedral at 16 Phelps Street. Almost at the same time, he used the prayer light to see the tall bell tower and was attached to the cathedral. He saw a young man wearing a pointed hat and a classic black robe standing at the top of the bell tower. This youth was holding a black bell hammer and was striking the bell repeatedly. The youth was holding a black bell hammer and striking the bell repeatedly. I read that twice. As if sensing the gaze from above, the youth stopped. He lifted his head slightly and adjusted the crystal monocle on his right eye. At the same time, he smiled, widened. Klein nearly cursed. At this moment, his eyes gazed over almost the unconcealed manor. Oh my god. He didn't understand why the Angel of Time Amon would suddenly appear and mysteriously strike the bell of his cathedral. Klein was actually mentally prepared for Amon's and Zertil's possible arrival. This was because there was just too many people in the City of Silver, Moon City. There was no way they could secretly integrate with the outside world. In other words, the City of Silver and the Moon City would definitely be known to the various churches and secret organizations. Under such circumstances, be it public or private proselytizing, it would be affected by future developments. Therefore, Klein silently agreed to the City of Silver's attempts to proselytize the faith of the Fool. This was preparation for him to have more anchors of his advancement to Sequence 1. Due to this premise, he was prepared for Zertil and Amon and other hidden enemies to come to bay him. He even hoped that they would do so. Here, Klein, who was in status at the level of the King of Angels in Sephra Castle, was able to display his home ground advantage. As for the City of Silver, it also had Grade 0 sealed artifacts. It could completely resist Amon and take down Zertil. Compared to his main body suddenly encountering a prepared enemy elsewhere, it discovered the Marionette City was undoubtedly a better choice. However, Amon's current action confused Klein. He didn't understand what the God of Deceit wanted to achieve. 16 Phelps Street, inside the Fool's Cathedral. The Archbishop on duty, the City of Silver's 6-member council, Elder Derek Berg, also looked up in astonishment at the stained glass. Rays of sunlight shone inside, allowing Derek to read one scene after another. Okay. Rays of sunlight shone in, allowing Derek to read one scene after another. As the black bell hammer fell, the tremors of the bell gradually stopped. It didn't arrange for someone to strike the bell. Derek frowned. As a member of the City of Silver, as a demigod in the Sun Domain, he had a sharp intuition and knew that something must have gone wrong. However, the strange ringing of the bell didn't bring any accidents. Besides the ringing, everything seemed normal. As Derek observed the surroundings with help of the Unshadow Beyond her powers, he quickly considered whether the bell had a symbolic significance in mysticism. After eliminating the possibilities, he suddenly recalled the Holy Bible of the Fool made up this City of Silver. There was content related to the striking of the bells. It was used to describe the relationship between the Angel of Time Amon and the Fool to confirm his true status. Towards the sentence, Derek was still against it because he knew that the Blasteron wasn't Mr. Fool's blessed. Their relationship wasn't even harmonious and was actually hostile. However, the lies made previously had convinced the other members of the City of Silver's 6-member council. They believed the Angel of Time Amon was the first entity appointed by Mr. Fool to cast down the light for the people of the Forsaken Land of the Gods. It was because he had parasitized Derek, which had resulted in the subsequent changes all the way until hope descended. That's crazy. Derek had wanted to explain, but he was embarrassed. That would only bring up too many lies, making him lose his image with the other elders of the 6-member council and the citizens of the City of Silver. It was just like Miss Justice had said before, a social death. Finally, he chose to delay any actions, hoping that Mr. Fool would take a look at the Holy Bible. If there was anything inappropriate with the descriptions, he would definitely send the divine revelation to change the views. To his surprise, Mr. Fool didn't say anything and silently agreed with the contents of the Holy Bible. Could it be that Amon is striking the bell? Derek was momentarily dazed as he found it too unbelievable. He hurriedly lowered his head and began praying, reporting this matter to Mr. Fool. Above the gray fog inside Sephra Castle, before Klein could eliminate Amon, the other party suddenly turned transparent and transformed into a beam of light before vanishing from the bell tower. What does that fellow want? If his father is the Emperor and not the ancient sun god, then I can reasonably suspect that he is striking a death knell for me. As Klein checked if there were any Amons lurking in the bodies of the Cities of Silver and Moon City citizens, he analyzed Amon's motives without any clues in mind. Just as he was about to use divination to seek clues, Derek completed his prayer. Holy Bible. Holy Bible. The corners of Klein's mouth twitched as he summoned from the junk pile the Holy Bibli of the City of Silver had sacrificed him. Previously, he had only flipped through the few pages, but he was too embarrassed to continue reading it. He took on a position of burying his head in the sand. Of course, he wasn't careless in this aspect. He was still extremely cautious. He used divination inside separate council to confirm that the Holy Bible wouldn't bring any harm to him. With the premise, he allowed the City of Silver to use this Holy Bibli. He slowly took a deep breath and reached out his right hand. He flipped the scriptures page by page. His facial muscles began to twitch, and the corners of his lips uncontrollably parted. Klein flipped faster and faster. Finally, he saw the last page. Klein suddenly closed the book and threw it back into the junk pile. After a miracle in the Moon City, yes, the potion has mostly been digested. The Marionette City will have to step onto the stage of history. Klein observed his condition without expression and nodded indiscernibly. Ever since he had gained preliminary control over Sephra, Castle, he could receive digestion feedback from the real world. Oh my god. As for the Marionette Town, Klein had been thinking about how to build it for a long time. He had already come up with 3 plans. If he eliminated any interference from external factors, his best choice would be somewhat in a certain country in the northern continent. He would allow his Marionette Town to rise up overnight. Furthermore, he would connect it to the surrounding cities through railways, rivers, and roads. I sounded like, you know when you have a vinyl and it starts scratching and it's like that's what I sounded like there. This is the Marionette Town would have a large number of outsiders arriving on a daily basis, and it would create a very strong interaction with the surrounding areas. On one hand, the town without a city nearby would definitely purchase grain, salt, cloth, or sugar, and other daily necessities. On the other hand, it would also produce its own products, which could be sold to neighboring cities, towns, and villages. Under such situations, merchants, workers, tourists, and other groups would go back and forth frequently. At the same time, they would interact more with the Marionette Town residents. Under the influence of all kinds of interactions between... Okay, this is really cool and all. Like, I think it's super cool that we're talking about this whole marionette thing, and Klein does have to advance. Amon is, like, down the street. You know? Like, I do understand this whole side plot, and Klein does need to be stronger to deal with Amon, but I think we glazed over the fact, maybe a smidge, that Amon is down the street. He's actually in the same building as Derek right now, so, you know. Under the influence of all kinds of interactions between the parties, it wouldn't be long before the town of Marionettes could produce a corresponding region in the spirit world. Once the lives of the residents become more detailed and real, Klein would consume the potion of the advanced Sequence 1 Attendant of Mysteries. This would take less than 3 months, but the problem was that the approach couldn't be kept confidential. Yeah, in the present era, I have a town suddenly pop up with something that couldn't be hidden from people. Soon there would be a civil servant, the police, the reporters come to investigate. After that, the interactions between the parties would also make more and more people know that the understanding of the city. This was a problem that could be resolved through illusions unless the town of Marionettes didn't interact with the surrounding cities, towns, and villages that had relatively minor interactions. However, that wouldn't meet the requirements of the ritual. When news of the Marionette Town spread, Klein would undoubtedly be targeted by Zeratil, Amon's true body, and his other enemies. When the time came, the destruction caused by the others would definitely be easier than him protecting it. He could only migrate his Marionette Town elsewhere. This would cause the interactions generated in the early stages to be for naught, just like what the dark demonic wolf had experienced. Therefore, Klein had only listed down such a plan. He had basically wanted to choose it unless the certain visionary was willing to provide help, making all the living beings in the northern and southern continent naturally believe that there's indeed a town there, one that had suddenly appeared. Considering the influence of various external factors and his beyonder powers, Klein had his best choice was to establish the town in an uninhabited island and deviated from the safe sea route and was successfully well hidden. He would then use Sephra Castle to give it an anti-divination, anti-prophecy properties. At the same time, Klein would use the curtain to graft some roads, rivers, and railways to somewhere outside the marionette town, making it a stop for random groups of people during their journeys. This could be kept completely confidential, but once the strange phenomenon spread and attracted Zeratul and Amon's attention, Klein could easily remove the original grafting randomly and switch the entrance. Under such a strategy, the movement was limited to the entrance, not the marionette town itself. The effects of the various interactions in the spirit world could be preserved without being interrupted. The ritual could steadily produce a plan as planned. Of course, there was a big problem with this plan. Was that the interaction would be limited and couldn't influence matters at a daily level in the aspects. In addition, the frequency and intensity of the interaction wouldn't be too high. If he chose this plan, it meant that Clyde had to be spent more than half a year or even a year on the ritual. If he wanted to be safe, forcing every marionette phase to have a beginning and an end, the ritual would take at least 50 years. However, there was also a way to get around the limitation. Once the rest of the ritual's requirements were met, he could deliver a meteorite strike an earthquake, or a volcano eruption to the town, causing all the marionette's fates to come to the end. Okay, in the real world, it was something that happened in real life and was rather reasonable. In this radical and conservative proposal, Klein, it's pretty fucking radical, Klein, had another solution. It was to replicate the city and make the marionette corresponding to the residents of the City of Silver mapped 1-to-1 for evil miracle invokers. They could wipe out the original city and use the marionettes to replace its inhabitants. Those who had a kind heart would hide their city and entrust the city Those who had a kind heart would hide the city and entrust the supply of goods. The reason as to why one didn't convert a target city into marionettes was that it already had a corresponding region in the spirit world. Without being a newly born one, it didn't meet the requirements of the ritual. With a curtain formed around the attendant and mysteries beyond a characteristics, Klein could make a better choice, graft a city at a particular stage to his marionette town. This meant that the town of marionettes had become the dark side of the city. In the corresponding period of time, outsiders would encounter marionettes and not real people. Oh my god, holy shit, Klein. At this point, just use the Moon City people. This is becoming so fucking complicated. In the corresponding period of time, outsiders would encounter marionettes and not real people. Once the period of time passed, they would leave the town of marionettes and return to the real world to deal with the real people. During the process, Klein would send his marionettes to act as an outsider and maintain interactions with the corresponding real person, allowing the real outsiders to return to the real world without any gaps. In other words, there were two different lives planning out the same city at the same time, but no one could notice that. Occasionally, some people would think that the same details were right, but would find it inexplicable and might just ignore it. This was rather in line with the characteristics of an attendant of mysteries, and it had a certain level of concealment. Of course, the plan also had a problem. It was to simulate the fate of the marionettes at a very high level, almost as similar as the humans without its own independence. It would cause the ritual's effect to fail. Klein tapped the edge of the long molten table with his fingers and was in a dilemma over the second and third plan. After a few minutes, he did as his heart willed, cowardice, and chose the second plan. He would rather spend more time than affect the fates of the innocent. Good for you, Klein. I'm really proud of him. He chose the right one. And I have no hate towards the Moon City people. It was a joke. It was a bad joke because I accidentally laughed at stuff that happened earlier. I don't actually want the Moon City people to have anything bad happen to them. Their whole life has been something bad happening to them until they were saved and brought outside of literal hell. So I hope they have a long and happy life and that they don't have any more deformations. That's all I got. I I'm also a nice person. Don't even with me right now. Of course, this plan also has a problem. It was to... Where was I? Oh, the Anderson. Back then, Zertal and Antigonus clearly chose the third plan. Yeah, they did. Klein sighed and prepared to return to the real world. At this moment, he looked at the junk pile and considered whether he should send a revelation to change the descriptions in the City of Silver, Holly Bibley. I don't. We're not starting this agenda. This is not something that's starting. I do not do that. To a deity, the Holy Bible wasn't anything too important. Its best use was for its convenience to spread its teachings and increase the number of anchors. The Holly Bibley! The Holly Bibley of the Fool! Klein had long come to the conclusion of the revelation of Evernight, the Book of Storms. No! The Book of Storms and the contents of the various See, this is what I get. This is what I get for laughing. The Book of Storms, the contents of the various Orthodox churches of the Holy Bibley. Most of the content elevated the Orthodox deity, making random claims and grandeur and expressed mercy and pity. In the ancient times, the impression of believers had the deities would indeed have a negative impact on the deities, but now, with the use of symbols instead of the statues, the latent problems no longer existed. At the very least, the Evernight goddess, the Lord of Storms, and the other deities openly declared that they were parts of the Creator's original body. They were worried that they would exacerbate the awakening of the Oldest One. In other words, if there were really a problem with the aspect, Klein believed that the Evernight goddess would definitely have changed the corresponding description. She would have changed the description of being one of the eyes of the creator of the child spawned by him, it too enjoyed a very high status. At the same time, the believers acknowledged that certain matters would only have a burden on the deities themselves in the mysticism sense. Otherwise, Amon would have secretly helped Klein, or rather prepared a batch of believers for the former Sephir Castle to lure them into forming a belief of the Angel of Time was the manifestation of the Lord of Mysteries. With the aid of the instinctual response that met the requirements, he could establish enough connections with Sephir Castle to open a back door to a deity of the Holy Bibley only had two important components other than the spreading of faith. Firstly, it was a description of the authority, that honorific name of the deities themselves. If there were any mistakes, it would lead to the prayers of the believers pointing to the unknown target. Not only would it be dangerous to the believers, but it would also cause the deities to lose their anchors. Secondly, any description that involved other churches would easily attract conflict. As the angels and saints, the deities actually didn't pay too much mind. The ones that cared were the angels and saints themselves, because they needed to obtain a certain level of anchors through this. Therefore, the Holy Bibley's description of angels and saints were detailed enough. They had authority and honorific names, making it easier for different believers to choose to be immersed. In addition, this wasn't enough to form a stable anchor because it was under the faith of the deity. In order to resolve this problem, the Orthodox churches would define certain cathedrals and certain guardians, angels, and guardian saints to clearly differentiate them. Due to the knowledge, Klein didn't pay much attention to the Holy Bible after he finished reading the description about the authority and honorific name. He stopped continuing out of embarrassment. He only used divination to confirm the contents would result in a conflict with the Orthodox churches. After some thought, he gave up the idea and directly sending the revelation to change the Holy Bible and descend to use a gentler method. During the Tarot Club's exchange, he could use the world Garamond Sparrow to guide the sun into adjusting the understanding of the situation, turning the parts involving the Angel of Time, Pallas Zores, allowing the corresponding content to be fixed and causing any suspicion in the City of Silver. Dude, I can't fix it. It'll fix on itself. Just give it a little bit. Fame Verdue Abraham was obtained quite a bit of mysticism knowledge, a few beyond her circles. He lit up the gas wall lamp and carefully read it in the night. Towards the end, he suddenly read a piece of news that had never understood before. Bansi Harbor is a place Towards the end, he suddenly read a piece of news that he never understood before. Bansi Harbor is a place filled with mysticism power. Its connection with the spirit world and the astral world is beyond imagination. Even the Church of Storms, directly destroying the harbor, it still can't completely eliminate the abnormality of its existence. Many mysticism researchers are purchasing items related to Bansi at a high price. Bansi, Verdu muttered in himself silently, suddenly having a strong interest in the harbor. He began considering if he should buy some items from Bansi and do a thorough study of them. After all, the spirit world was related to teleportation, the astral world and the cosmos evolving wonderling, and might involve Mr. Dor Bethel Abraham's method of escaping. Perhaps, if I had the chance, I could go to Bansi and take a look. Verdu nodded indiscernibly. Yeah, I feel like I don't have a lot left. To be honest, because it's like, I think it, oh, there's a fire somewhere. That's why I was looking out the window, because it was like all hazy and smoky. So I was like, oh, okay, so there's a fire. Which, if the smoke gets bad enough, my voice will get worse. Yeah, because I think we have we have like 7 chapters left, 8 chapters left, something like that. So it'll be chill. But what was I gonna say? Yeah, I don't really know. I have a doctor's appointment with my voice. I talk about it a lot because it's like always not okay. Give me 1 second. Yeah, like I feel like my voice is never 100% and it never will be 100%. And I just have to live with it. And that's all there is. I was really hoping we wouldn't get a forest fiery summer this year. And we were gonna get a nice summer. Because there's no fires around where I am, but I guarantee you there's probably fires either near the border or somewhere else and the wind's just blowing them up. I should just get new vocal cords. I think mine are just permanently damaged for the rest of my life. Here's the one thing I worry about with my voice, is I do worry that one day it's gonna go deeper. One day it's gonna go deeper and it's not going to come back. And I'm just gonna have like a really deep voice for the rest of my life. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, we get forest fires yearly. This year it's been pretty good because we've had it be rainy, but I think that is about to change, which sucks. But whatever. Anyway, let's continue. I'll probably have to do vocal training. I feel like I could probably just start an ASMR channel. It would work wonders. The initial preparations for the building a marionette town were rather boring and tedious. At the very least, Klein believed so. In the ancient palace, Klein sat at the high-back chair belonging to the fool, holding a fountain pen. There were ordinary pieces of paper with the name, age, and fate of every marionette. As he made the worms of spirit emerge from his body, they formed avatars beside him. Some Klein sat on the ground while others occupied 21 seats. Other than the fools, some conjured beds and lay on them. They will. They truly, truly will. Some Klein sat on the ground, while others occupied the 21 seats other than the fools. Some conjured beds to lay on them. Then they summoned different books from the junk pile and started reading them seriously. The books included, but were not limited to, How to Brew Wine, Train Dispatching, Desert Making Compendium, A Clergyman Prepares, Gas wall lamps, gas meters, and all kinds of family machinery repairs, Literacy, harbor management, foundations of law, ladies' aesthetic magazines. They were special knowledges of different marionettes needed to grasp. Only by doing so would they be able to act their roles well, allowing them to realistically in every aspect. Even if they were to engage in deep conversation with outsiders, they would be exposed to any problems. It would be difficult for Klein if he just needed to simply memorize the knowledge, but he had to truly grasp and apply it. Furthermore, he couldn't confuse his characters. He couldn't let a burly and strong switchman with a low income be talking about wonders of particular skincare product. That was spelled really weird. Or, put really weird. Or which silk cloth was flawed. If such a situation were to happen in novel plays and operas, it might cause a strange attraction, but putting it in the real world was clearly uncanny and not beneficial to the advancement of the ritual. To avoid such a problem, Klein could only work harder in the early stages. He hoped that every character in the marionette town would be real, whole, and appropriate. Fortunately, there weren't many people in the city who needed a deeply understanding the corresponding specialty of knowledge. Most of the residents were half illiterate or really illiterate. Well, I think I know how I'm going to meet Garamond Sparrow. They relied on experiences and lived their lives. They repeated via emotions. For these characters, the knowledge that Klein needed to grasp was relatively little. Just like workers who had gone through simple training, or even without any training, to be sent to the assembly line. After an unknown period of time, Klein put down his fountain pen and rubbed his temples, letting out a long sigh of relief. He had finally written down the information about nearly 5,000 residents of the marionette town, and his corresponding knowledge preparations was almost complete. This was a very super large-scale movie directed by a director, and with me being the scriptwriter for some of the lighting engineers and makeup artists and all the actors for this ritual, I'm really on the verge of losing control. If I'm not careful, my personality will dissociate and I'll fall into the abyss of madness. Luckily, I have a professional psychologist. Yes, I have to pay attention to the problem in the town's operations. Although I'm a gentleman with manners, most of the residents of the town have low socioeconomic status. Be it speaking or acting, they're more inclined towards being vulgar. I can't make a mistake during the acting and become set back from the psychology barriers. Klein silently, as the avatars around him disintegrated into worms of spirit before he got them to burrow into his body. Of course, this wasn't all. There was also one Klein who maintained the previous state, preparing to be on Sephir Castle duty. In the next second, Klein returned to the real world and took out a creeping hunger from the historical void. Then he teleported to an island that was located in the Berserk Sea, but one that clearly deviated from the safe sea route. This was a stage he had chosen before. The place was isolated from the storm all year round. There was no signs of human activity, only a large forest and animals that lived off the forest. Klein looked around and chose an open area. He pressed his right hand to his left chest and prayed sincerely. I wish that there was a city suitable for 5,000 people here. Just as he said that, Klein raised his right hand and snapped his finger. Suddenly, the open area became extremely flat. The surface forest around receded greatly, providing large amounts of wood, stone, and soil. This is literally like when you see a beautiful area of just greenery and open space, and you're like, you know what'd be great there? A parking lot. Klein just took this beautiful forest where the animals used the forest to survive, and it was untouched by man, and it was gorgeous, and he's like, you know what would go great here? Man-made objects. Destroy everything. Flatten it all. Almost at the same time, buildings rose up from the ground. They took form with stone and wood. Put a Walmart, put a parking lot, put an Arby's, McDonald's. We need a shopping mall. That's one thing we need. Hotels, a resort. Give me 8 Starbuckses, all on the same strip, facing each other. Almost at the same time, buildings rose up from the ground. They took form of the stone and wood. The highest wasn't more than 5 stories high. The style was close to the Lowen Kingdom's Desi Bay. In just a blink of an eye, residential buildings, a library, police station, telegraph office, a city hall, a small hospital, a candy factory, water plant, a gas company, a steam locomotive station, parallel train tracks, a plantation outside the city took form. The streets were also paved with cement and stone brick. Nice. Towards the end of the square was the middle of a town, was a pointed tip cathedral emerged from the ground and stood proudly. This was the cathedral belonging to the Evernight goddess, as it was in line with the background setting of the city. I hope this island has a deep sea harbor. Klein didn't stop as he made a second wish. He snapped his fingers again, fulfilling this wish. About 3 kilometers away from the town, a small-scale harbor. Oh my god, not only are we destroying the natural life that's living on this island, we're also destroying the sea life. Klein, buddy, could we not just find an open space? He snapped his fingers again, fulfilling the wish. About 3 kilometers away from the town, a small-scale harbor quickly took shape. There were 2 docks, 5 warehouses, a port hotel, a simple restaurant, a police station branch, a bar, a lighthouse, and a naval base. I wish for the harbor and town to have convenient transportation. This is crazy. Klein made a third wish. He raised his right hand and snapped his finger. The concrete road and the cargo rail instantly appeared between 2 towns and the harbor. According to Klein's plan, the portion of the harbor was prepared by visitors by sea. The town was mainly for outsiders from the northern and southern continent. As he looked at the empty city in admiration, Klein pressed his top hat and teleported to the municipal square. He walked step by step into the cathedral named St. Ariana Cathedral. Yes. The cathedral door was open and was dark inside. After an unknown period of time, 3 figures appeared at the door. There was a 30-year-old gentleman in formal suit and tie, an ordinary-looking and gentle-looking woman, and a child who was dressed like an adult. The woman took a few steps and in difficulty before stretching her neck. Then she smiled and reached out her hand to hold the gentleman's arm. The gentleman had a faint smile on his face as he allowed the lady to lean on him. He reached out his right hand and held the boy. The little boy was skipping about, appearing very lively. Their actions were a little rough at first, but the more they walked, the smoother they became as they walked through the square. After they left, more and more people walked out of St. Ariana Cathedral. They consisted of police repair workers, gas company employees, restaurant chiefs, white herald men, simply dressed farmers. In the next hour, people constantly came out of the Evernight Cathedral. They either turned to different streets and went to different places, entering different houses, shopping at the square, or enjoying the pigeonless scenery. During this process, the number of people that came out had exceeded the limits of the cathedral capacity, but there seemed to be no end to the people, as though the interior was connected by another city. After another 15 minutes of entrances at St. Samuel Cathedral finally fell silent. However, there were rats, cockroaches, moths, ants, flies, and mosquitoes creeping outward. Finally, a colorful window at the top of the cathedral opened. White pigeons flew out and landed in the middle of the square. Holy shit, Klein. Finally, a colorful window at the top of the cathedral opened. White pigeons flew out and landed in the middle of the square. The people who had stayed there came to life completely. Some teased the pigeons, others looked for hawkers, while some played a 7-string guitar, and others smiled as they conversed with their friends. A man wearing a top hat and trench coat, carrying a cane, left the municipal square. He came to the other side of the town and stopped in front of the wooden board. He took out tools and wrote the name of the town on the wooden board. Oh no. Harnum? Yarnum? Is it Yarnum or is it Harnum? After some thought, he wiped away the name and wrote another name, Utopia. Backland inside the Hall family's luxurious villa. Alfred has already boarded the cruise ship back to the northern continent. Crazy! The fact that he just created an entire town, 5,000 people strong, created all the people, all the bugs, all of it, that's super OP. Damn. Damn. Would I still love Klein if he was 500 cockroaches and mosquitoes? Yes. Here's the thing. I would. Klein could literally be like... Klein could be like a rock. He could just be... Or like he could be a really big boulder that I couldn't move, I couldn't do anything, and I would have to walk to it every single day. And I would do that. I would build a house right next to it if I had to. And that's just the love and care and attention that I give. What the fuck are you on? Fake fan. Backlund inside the Hall family's luxurious villa. Alfred boarded the cruise ship back to the northern continent. Audrey didn't hide her surprise. It was September 1352. Crazy. Dude, I can't believe that Klein just built all that. Into the past half year, Audrey didn't spend too much effort to make her father give up, as though it were returning to Eastchester County for the first half a year. This was because they were pressing need to rebuild Backlund and Constance City. The kingdom swallowed... Bro, I can't win. The kingdom's political scene also needed a new balance. Earl Hall had too many things to handle and wasn't in the mood for a vacation. Therefore, whenever Earl Hall was put into a difficult spot, she just needed to take the initiative and say she was willing to remain in Backlund, return to Eastchester County in the next 6 months, and have things develop as she wanted to receive praise for. As a psychology alchemist, she didn't rush either. Up to now, the Psychology Alchemist Council has been meeting. Council meeting has been held 3 times. It is mainly to communicate their research results and the various information of the areas under the jurisdiction. Only Ma'am Greed has asked about the clues to the Mind Dragon twice. To be frank, if Mr. Fool had reminded Audrey to take note of the rabbit, wraith, and easily forgettable precedent, she would definitely find the conference interesting. Mr. Rabbit has plenty of ideas, but she remained as vigilant as ever. I don't know why I couldn't read that. Yes, the liner has already left the harbor. Earl Hall smiled and nodded. While Alfred arrives in Backlund and completes the necessary social intercourse, he will return to Eastchester County for fox hunting. Autumn was the best time to hunt foxes. Audrey tersely acknowledged, all right. As a major general in the army, Alfred didn't follow the naval fleet to Desi Bay. Instead, he led the adjustments and squires and boarded a steam-powered sailboat hybrid for Prince Harbor. After traveling for nearly 2 days, they encountered a storm in the Berserk Sea. As the ship shook violently, the sailors in the observatory saw some light through the telescope. It came from the lighthouse. This is the author's note, and I think this is about Klein's plans and how I'm a really bad person. Author's note. I wrote in detail 3 plans in the previous chapter because I felt that the 3rd plan was the most impactful, but it's impossible for Klein to undertake it with his characters, so I unfortunately gave it up. I specifically wrote it out for all of you to have a sense of what the most bizarre and mysterious methods. Does Klein do something horrible? Here's the thing, because Klein, I've been waiting for him to do, like... Not that he hasn't already, but I'm like, I've been waiting for Klein to do some shady shit. Like, I've been waiting for Klein to do some things where you're just like, because I feel like he's just like, he's just on that kind of route to doing that. Yeah, like, that's the thing. Like, Klein can do, like, the most awful things. I'm still gonna be like, is it not great? Yes. Is it Klein? Also, yes. So, like, I don't know. See which one outweighs the other. The liner passed through the storm and approached the lighthouse. The small-scale harbor entered the sights of the captain, sailors, and passengers through the gloomy rain. A short while later, the man in his 30s, who was wearing a blue uniform and holding onto a black umbrella and gas lantern appeared at the dock and used rather uncommon actions. Oh my god, I didn't realize there was more. Uncommon actions to guide the liner to moor. As the man watched the gangway lower, he opened his mouth and shouted, "Hey matey, where'd you come from?" Most of his voice was swallowed by the wind. His voice successfully reached the liner interior and entered Alfred's ears. "Did you know what this place is?" Alfred looked carefully and adjusted the squire. First off, chair's not going to break on stream, and I don't need to lose weight. I'm perfect, okay? I just didn't realize that the chair was lifted up, and then I was like doing things. It was like one of those uppy down chairs, and I was flipping with the handle. Interior and entered Alfred's ears. "Do you know what this place is?" Alfred looked carefully and adjusted his squire. He wasn't wearing the general's ceremonial attire, wearing a black trench coat. This was commonly seen in Backland. His dazzling blonde hair drooped down casually, and his blue eyes looked at the deep lake in the forest. The adjustment, who had neatly combed his hair and the back, first shook his head to indicate the uncertainty before he explained. "The storm from before made me lose my bearings." At this moment, the captain held an umbrella and came to the shipboard. He answered the man, "We left eastbound 2 days ago and unfortunately encountered a storm." "What harbor is this?" The man's eyes darted around for a moment. Without giving a direct answer, he shouted, "Wait a moment, will ya?" He turned around, holding an umbrella and the lantern, and ran towards the buildings near the dock. The reaction was beyond the expectation of Alfred and the other passengers, but it was strange for the experienced ship captain. First mate and others, they had encountered any abnormalities at the port along the Berserk Sea. This made them patiently wait for subsequent developments. 5 to 6 minutes later, the man led a lady over. The woman didn't have an umbrella and was wearing a hooded raincoat smeared with Donningsman tree sap. As the two of them approached the liner under the watch of the armed sailors, they climbed up the gangway to the deck. At such a distance, most of the passengers finally saw what the two of them looked like. The man had brown hair and brown eyes. His skin was rough, and it was obvious that he was a lower socioeconomic status and had suffered the elements. The woman was in her 20s, and her eyes were limpid green. She had long flaxen hair. A few wet strands clung to her face, making her appear pure and charming. This was rather a pretty lady with a wild temper. "Hi there, this is Utopia Harbor," the man impatiently introduced. "I'm Theodore, the interim port captain." As he spoke, he laughed as though he was happy to had invented such an amazing position. Of course, the ship captain knew that what the so-called interim port captain meant. He didn't take it to heart about the sudden happiness of the small fry. He frowned slightly and said, "Utopia Harbor? Why haven't I heard of it?" Theodore looked at him and said, "What you said is quite common. If it weren't for the landlubber hurricane, you might never come here." Without waiting for him to say anything else, the lady rushed forward and said, "Utopia isn't on the safe sea route. Usually only people who understand the waters and know this place will come here for supplies. So the men of this harbor are pirates." How could the captain not be able to tell what she meant? In times like this, tacitly acknowledge things without exposing them, providing protection to both sides. He tersely acknowledged and said, "And you are?" "My name is Tracy." The lady smiled. "I'm the owner of the Harbor Inn, and also its receptionist and attendant." She surveyed the area and said, "It's quite a heavy storm and the ship will be bumpy. It's not a wise choice to stay in the rest. The harbor will provide you with stable beds, warm water, clean food, and warm blankets, and an environment that will remind you of home. It's only 10 pence a night. I'm referring to the price of a single room. Other than that, you guys can still drink the nearby bar and enjoy the warm hospitality." Clearly, this lady was here to solicit for business. The captain was rather alert and didn't respond directly. He nodded and said, "I can't decide on behalf of the passengers. They are free to choose for themselves. Of course, as captain, I will stay here with my crew." Tracy maintained her smile and said, "I'll wait at the hotel for guests who are willing to disembark." She seemed to have received a certain amount of education. She wasn't hot and spirited as the woman at the other ports who spewed vulgarities in every sentence. Tracy turned around and was about to return when Theodore approached her and said with a sullen expression, "You have to thank me for telling you the news immediately." As he spoke, his right hand pressed against Tracy's butt before he pinched hard. Ew. Tracy swatted away his hand and chilled. You're a jerk who Get it, Tracy! You're a jerk who should be fucked by a donkey. Yes! Yes! Let's go. Let's go. Klein, I don't really like this agenda that we're pushing when it comes to the treatment of women. But I do like the response from the treatment of women. The only thing that would have been better is if she pulled out a gun and killed him. That would have also been great. Or if she just punched him in the face really, really hard. Either one of those. Not totally sure how I feel about that, but good for you, Tracy. Fucking crazy. No, he's been shouting Leo Darrow's name one too many times. I think the toxic masculinity is starting to seep into his brain a little too much. We gotta cut back on that guy a little bit. No! Line, what the fuck is happening right now? She took a few steps forward and left the liner by the gangway. Theodore shook his head and cursed with a smile. Bitch. Kill this man! Klein, kill him! This scene suddenly moved many passengers on board. To them, the biggest flaw on the ship was that it was boring and there was a bar on the harbor. This meant that they could meet cheap street girls who were unlike those from the northern and southern continent. They were local street girls with unique local charm. If one was lucky or willing to spend a lot of money, one of them might even be able to sleep with a spirited beauty with an attitude. Instantly, many passengers packed their luggage and prepared to head to the Harbor Hotel. Upon seeing this, Alfred adjusted and asked, General, are we getting off the ship? You know what? Klein's doing it for the love of the game. Here's the thing. Klein's doing it because he has to. I think a little bit is for the love of the game. He's like, you know what? Yeah. He's spent his time with Demoness. He knows how much fun it can be. He's like, I want to try. And I said, you know what? Props to you, Klein. I'm proud of you. We don't know anything about this place. We have to be careful. Staying on the ship is our best choice. The adjustment had no objection to this. He was worried. What are those who have already aligned? That's their choice. Alfred looked out the window expressionlessly. If an accident happens, we can only keep more people safe. If it's not serious, then we will be able to resolve it easily. With that said, he turned to look at his adjutant and squire. We'll take turns to keep watch tonight and prevent any accidents. Alfred, who had interacted with the numinous Episcopate in the Rose School of Thought, another organization in the southern continent, had an instinctive sense of vigilance towards unfamiliar places. After he exchanged his opinion with the ship captain, Alfred got into bed, listening to strong winds hitting the glass windows and torrential rain pattering on the deck. He was about to doze off. At that moment, he heard a tender and sad melody coming from the direction of the harbor. It seemed to come from the flute intermittently like a human whimpering through the storm. Alfred was instantly immersed in the music. It was as though he had returned to Backlund, which appeared in his dreams. He returned to the state that the mixture of happy childhood days, the vexing times of his youth and other emotions. He shook his head violently and shook off the feeling. He realized that he wasn't a psychology effect, but a normal person's reaction. Alfred rolled out of bed and walked to the window. Using his share of beyonder powers, he confirmed that the music he heard came from the cheap hotel. It's not from the guests on board the ship. Their goal is very clear. They wouldn't be in a mood to play such a melody. They are tourists in Utopia to begin with, or could it be that the owner of the part-time attendant named Tracy? If I were her, she wouldn't be a lady with a story. Alfred sighed and tracked his gaze. He stopped pondering over the matter. Although he was curious, he had no intention of getting off the ship. Soon he sounded the flute stopped. The Harbor Hotel regained the silence of nothing unexpected happened. Just like that, time passed and the storm stopped. The sky gradually brightened. At 8 a.m, the liner passengers returned one after another. Every one of them had weak steps and looked haggard. Upon seeing this, the sailors immediately laughed and said, "The chicks here seem pretty good." Just the casual sexism. The passengers shook their head at the same time and looked regretful. One of them rubbed their temples and said, The Lanty proof here isn't bad. It's cheaper than the other places. I wasn't careful and had a little too much to drink and ended up falling asleep. I don't even know if anything happened with the babe. I woke up to realize that the ship was about to leave, and I don't even remember what I did after getting drunk. Praise the lady, she let me lie in a bed and not sleep in the rain. The other passengers chimed in and expressed their similar experiences. Of course, everyone had different details. For example, some passengers praised the breakfast dessert in the cheap hotel. The sailors were regretful they didn't manage to drink the cheap and good Lanty proof. They started teasing the passengers. Perhaps the one who spent the night with you wasn't the chick here, but the burly man like Theodore. Since all of you were drunk, there's no way to know what happened. Try touching your assholes. Amidst the lively atmosphere, the sailors withdrew the gangway and raised the sails, allowing the liner to set up slowly. Look, what happens in Utopia stays in Utopia. All I'm saying is they look like they had a good time. Who knows with who, and who knows how, but they had a good time. No shade, no shame. Amidst the lively atmosphere, the sailors withdrew the gangway and raised the sails, allowing the liner to set off slowly. I could probably bet $100 they'll be back. If they're back for the girls, or if they're back for Theodore, nobody really knows. Only the Lanty proof knows. Alfred finally relaxed after passing through the dark sea and returning to the familiar safe sea route. He smiled and adjusted his squire and said, "You can mark this place on your map, mentioning that the liquor and desserts here aren't too bad. Yes, the girls have their own traits." After a few more days of traveling, the passengers finally arrived in Desi Bay, Escalon Harbor, after traveling along the winding safe sea route. Alfred, who has a demeanor of a noble, and his socialite instincts, paid a visit to the brass and nearby military base and shared a good dinner with them. When he returned, one of his father's vacation villas had a surprise. He was surprised to find the squire, whom he sent away to gather for information. "What's wrong?" Alfred put away his disorganized thoughts. The squire lowered his voice and said, "General, all of the official maps of the United Kingdom have no incantation of Utopia Harbor." Oh? Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. Okay, well, y'all also didn't know about the city of silver people, so clearly, I don't know. Alfred felt the room temperature plummet when he heard the squire. An indescribable chill invaded his body, freezing his blood and bone marrow. When the liner stopped at Utopia Port, he had expected the worst situation to happen. Utopia was headquarters of some cult, and that everyone there was a dangerous lunatic. But now the truth was even worse. Perhaps Utopia never existed. At that moment, Alfred was unusually thankful that he was no longer the noble Scion he was when he left Backland. He had accumulated a great deal of experience and had thus not really entered Utopia Harbor. Upon the gaze of the adjutant and squire, the major general paced back and forth with a solemn expression. He calmly instructed, "Draft up a telegram and report to MI9 about what happened at Utopia. At the same time, request the local official beyonders to immediately take action and contact the captain to list down all the people who entered Utopia Harbor. If necessary, pay each of them a visit and confirm if there are any problems." "Yes, sir." His adjutant immediately stood up and attention and saluted. After the adjutant oh my god, I can't do this right now. After the adjutant walked out of the study, Alfred said to the squire, "Bring up the typewriter from downstairs. I want to write a detailed report." He planned on his plan was to first use the telegram to report a key information of the brass and not delay the initial action necessary. Then he would reveal more details with the confidential document, provide more information from the military base to make a decision. Wendell walked to the second-class carriage with one hand on the top hat and the other carrying a suitcase. He wasn't even 30 years old. His sideburns were deep black and his brown eyes were calm. He didn't have any unique features in any way could remember, but he exuded comfortable vibes. A few months ago, he was still a Phaeton Potter intelligence officer who was active in Desi Bay and had contributed greatly. Now he was a Secret 7 Beyonder. He was part of MI9's Internal Affairs Department. Today, his goal was to send a confidential document to Backlund and personally hand it to the MI9 director. After sitting down, Wendell brought a newspaper from the paperboy and leisurely read through it. This was just a superficial act. In reality, he began to use his beyond powers to illustrate portraits of the passengers around him, remembering the characteristics, making meticulous and perfect preparations for any accident that might happen. The steam locomotive was chugging forward as the scenery outside sped past the windows. A few hours later, Wendell cast his gaze out the window with some anxiety. The sky is already filled with dark clouds and storm about to descend. This means that the steam locomotive would stop at the station ahead of time to tide through the storm. It might not only continue its journey the next morning and not reach its designated location. In Wendell's opinion, this would undoubtedly lead to more risk due to the divination of the expectations. However, it was beyond him. He couldn't change the weather like the sea god, who was promoted by the Roasted Archipelago's new government. The only thing he could do was pray to the Lord of Storms. Reality proved that praying was useless most of the time. By the time the sky turned dark and the station in front of them had already sent a light signal to get the train to slow down and stop. The steam engine whistled again and the train slowed down. Finally, it stopped at an unfamiliar platform. In the next second, near the steam power trains ahead, the mechanical door opened. The train conductor stood at the entrance and shouted to the staff on the platform what happened up ahead. Heavy rain, visibility is 0. The white sideburn employee answered loudly. Just as he finished speaking, the muffled thunder sounded, causing everyone to tremble as they sensed the incoming storm. Damn it. The train conductor cursed. Which station is this? As it wasn't a normal stop, they hadn't really known which station he was at. After all, the schedule he was in charge of didn't stop at every station in the past. Utopia. It's a small station. You can arrange the rest yourself. The staff shouted and ran towards the other end of the platform with a glass lantern in hand. I have to give the train behind a signal. The train conductor had no doubts about the staff's attitude because this was a normal dispatch process. Otherwise, an accident between two steam locomotives would happen. He could even be certain that other staff members of Utopia Station had already sent a telegram to the other stations to warn them. Of course, they must have received a telegram to learn of the area ahead of being enveloped by the heavy storm. Utopia. Wendell repeated the name in a low voice, not finding any useful information in his mind. Of course, he didn't think too much of it. This was because there was many unknown steam locomotive stations in the entire Lowen Kingdom. This was to manifestation of the country's overall strength. The train conductor looked at the dark sky and muttered a few words before using the newest megaphone to speak the passengers on board. A storm is coming. The train will stop at Utopia Station until 8 in the morning tomorrow. As estimated, the storm to continue the entire night. You can stay in the carriage or you can exit your own accord. To head into the city and look for an inn tomorrow, simply show your ticket stub to board the carriage again. Remember to be on time. The train conductor gave the passengers 2 choices. Wendell looked at the passenger inside the second-class carriage and pointed for a few seconds before carrying his suitcase and walking out of the train. This wasn't that he couldn't handle the harsh environments and wasn't conducive for good sleep. When he was an intelligence officer, he had been through plenty of hardship. He was only relying on his professionalism that the sealed carriages, which were limited in space for passenger movement, weren't as safe as a single room in an inn. Of course, he could stay up all night, but this would definitely affect his condition tomorrow. Clearly, he still had a long journey tomorrow. After using Utopia Station, Wendell got the rental carriage by the side of the road and said to the carriage driver, to Municipal Square. In the Lowen Kingdom, there would definitely be a cathedral and a hotel near the Municipal Square. Sir, are you planning on going to the hotel? The carriage driver asked as he made the horse turn around, seemingly capable of going along with anyone. Yes, as a sequence son beyonder, Wendell didn't hide it. In his opinion, as long as he lived in the city center while overseas, he could easily find a group of helpers with his status, and his strength was enough to support him in completing this task. The best hotel in Utopia is Red Boots. Are we going there? The coach driver asked in suggestive tone, and all men knew. If he didn't have a mission, Wendell wouldn't mind pleasuring himself. However, he could only shake his head without any hesitation. I want a quiet hotel. All right, the coachman replied disappointingly. Klein just wants to get cracked. I'll say it. He keeps getting upset. Let's go to the Iris' hotel. No one will disturb you there. As the carriage advanced, Wendell cast his gaze outside the window and observed the situation outside. Perhaps it was because the storm was about to arrive. The people on the road were all in a rush. Even the paperboys looked down. The very small city, Wendell came to the preliminary conclusion from the lack of the track carriage. He only saw one trackless carriage. This meant that most of the areas in Utopia could be reached on foot in an adequate amount of time. Just as he had expected, in less than 10 minutes, the rental carriage stopped. Truly, it is Pride Month. It is June, so Wendell paid the fare and rushed into the hotel before the rain fell. He heard pattering sounds behind him just as he entered. After checking in and putting down his luggage, Wendell rested for a while. He kept the confidential document close to him and went to the restaurant on the first floor to enjoy dinner. He cautiously didn't have any alcohol beverages and asked for a cup of fizzling iced tea, which was supposed to be a local specialty, and the fried pork chips drenched in apple juice. As a former intelligence officer of the high society, Wendell didn't have much expectations for dinner this time, but he was surprised by the meal. The pork chips were fried with a succulent and juicy manner and gave off a strong fragrance. The apple juice that was poured on it had a slightly acerbic texture and washed away most of the cloyed taste. The fizzling iced tea was refreshing and especially delicious. It says bull, but I'm going to assume it was Bill. When he foot the bill, Wendell nodded at the medium-billed waiter and said, "Please send my compliments to the chef for giving me a pleasure of this wonderful dinner." The ordinary-looking waiter smiled and replied, "That wouldn't be an issue. In all of Utopia City, our chefs are the best." Wendell didn't chit-chat and quickly returned to his room to make some arrangements to prevent others from sneaking in. Then he fell asleep without any hesitation. He used a relatively safe period of time, which any possible enemies would find unsuitable for taking action, to sleep in the past in time late into the night. After an unknown period of time, Wendell was suddenly woken by an intense argument. He snapped open the pocket watch and took a look and realized that it wasn't even midnight. "It's from next door." A woman's voice. A man's voice. Wendell sat up and listened carefully. Initially, he suspected that the man and woman flirting, but later he realized that it was too intense. Some of the items were even thrown at the wall, a quarrel turning into a fight. Just as Wendell mumbled, he heard the shouting, cursing, and screaming of the woman. Beating a woman? As a low-end gentleman, although Wendell believed in the Lord of Storms, ew, and discriminated against women, ew, boo, it didn't stop him from thinking that men shouldn't be violent towards women. After 2 seconds of consideration, he decided to knock on the door and remind his neighbors to take note. At that moment, a tragic cry rang out. It was obviously from a man. Thud, something heavy fell to the floor. Wendell's brows twitched as he sharply caught the scent of a criminal case. He stood up, put on his coat, and went to the room next door. He bent his fingers and knocked twice. A few seconds later, the door creaked open and a beautiful woman with long, wavy hair appeared in front of Wendell. Her hair was in a mess, her face was ghastly pale, and her light green clothes were stained with blood, and she was holding a dagger dripping with blood. The lady in her early 20s slammed the door while, before speaking in a dreamy tone, "I killed someone." Klein, what are we doing? Klein, what are we doing right now? This is literally, here's the thing, this is literally like Klein has spent too much time with both the Evernight Goddess and the Lord of Storms, and he has like an internal battle where it's like the men are super misogynistic and awful, and then the women are beating and murdering them. As they should. But it's like, he's fighting both of them. Oh my god, Klein beat himself and then killed his other self. Dude, you know what's also crazy? This is literally... Hold up. Klein's literally just playing Sims right now. He's just playing Sims 4. Because I'm thinking about this and I'm like... all these crazy things that are happening, all these things that are going on, I'm like... he's just kind of playing Sims 4. Because when I play Sims 4, some crazy stuff goes down. I maybe do some diabolical shit. And I can't blame him for that. The beating of the woman and the sexual harassment part, I'm like, okay, Klein, we don't have to do that. But, I mean, the other stuff, sure. Wendell wasn't unfamiliar with murder at all. When he heard that, he wasn't afraid at all. Instead, he calmly allowed his gaze to wander past the woman at the door into the room's interior. He immediately saw a man lying on the ground. His chest was bloody red. That's what I'm saying. He's the player and he's the character being played. Are you sure he's dead? Wendell asked calmly. The young lady in her 20s was at a loss, and first then she answered uncertainly. Maybe. I don't know. If there's still hope, we need to send him to a hospital immediately. Wendell's tone was like he was speaking to a patient's family and not a murderer. The lady holding the bloody dagger subconsciously turned her body and made way. Wendell took a few steps forward and approached the victim. He didn't need to squat down. He swept his gaze and made a judgment based on various signs. He is indeed dead. The woman in her 20s was with messy flaxen-colored hair didn't show any obvious changes in her expressions. She looked down at her toes and said, "Call the police." "How do I address you?" Wendell had already heard hurried footsteps coming from the stairs. It was obvious that the attendant of the hotel owner came to check up on the commotion after hearing the screams. "Tracy?" No! Bro! Tracy's going through it! It's Tracy again! Free my girl Tracy! She ain't do nothing! Oh my god. The pure lady with an attitude answered softly. She then sank into her own world and didn't say another word. Wendell was just about to say something when the owner of the hotel, who had helped him check in previously, had already rushed to the door. "Goddess," the elder man shouted after seeing the situation in the room. It was self-defense. I stand by. Tracy did nothing wrong. Wendell pressed down his right hand, gesturing for him to calm down before saying, "Call the police immediately. I'll stay here and watch." His temperament and words exuded the sense of confidence that convinced others. The owner of the hotel didn't waste any time and immediately turned around and ran downstairs. As for Wendell, when he first came to check in on the situation, it was just out of habit as a gentleman. In fact, he didn't have any intention of getting involved in it. After all, he was still shouldering the mission. However, Miss Tracy's dazed, detached, and cold attitude introduced a sense of pity in him. This was a normal reaction for a man. He surveyed the area as though he was conversing with air. Killing someone doesn't imply a harsh punishment. It can be categorized into many kinds of situations. Tracy slowly raised her head and cast her gaze at the gentleman. There was an indescribable luster in her lifeless eyes. Wendell glanced at her bruised face. "He hit you?" "Yes." The man seemed to have some sort of authority, making Tracy, who wanted to remain silent, finally answer. Wendell looked down at the dagger that was no longer dripping blood. "Was it you who brought it here, or him?" Tracy's response was a little slow and replied, "Him." Wendell nodded slightly and said, "Exercising your right to self-defense is in line with your law. I can testify to the police that you had an intense argument before it happened. Good job, Wendell. And that there was a fight. Clearly, men naturally possess an advantage in this aspect. I'm not discriminating against women, but it's something explained by science and experience." He paused and asked, "What is the relationship between the two of you? What happened?" Tracy's eyes darted about as she recovered a little from the deep, reclusive state. She seemed to be answering the policeman's questions as she said with a look of hope and sorrow, I am his mistress." Upon saying this, a self-deprecating smile appeared on Tracy's face. "I used to be an ugly woman who blindly chased after money. Not long after I left the grammar school, I became his mistress under his enticement. He gave me a hotel and let me stay here. I wait for his arrival or for him to summon me every week." Oh, Tracy. I lost interest in this lifestyle, feeling increasingly suppressed as my inferiority complex grew. I wanted to return everything to him and get rid of him completely, but he wasn't agreeable. He threatened me using all sorts of methods and refused to let me leave him. The recent times we met all ended in fights. Just now, he said that there was only one way to leave him, and that was death. Then he beat me up and took out a dagger. You know what happened after that. Mistress. Wendell caught a regretful pity glance at Tracy's face and said, "The traces of the scene have also confirmed the developments of the situation." He had originally thought that Tracy was deceased, were husband and wife, but to his surprise, the relationship was worse than he had imagined. Tracy nodded blankly and said, "Thank you." She didn't say another word. She only broke the silence when the police arrived. She raised her hand and accepted the handcuffs. "She didn't do anything! Free my girl!" Wendell looked at her staggered pace and said to a police, "Bring her to check on her injuries first and treat them to avoid any accidents." The police officer didn't know why they had listened to the instructions from the witness. In short, they led Tracy to Wendell and a small hospital in the city without any interjections from the heavy rain. As Tracy was a woman, Wendell and 2 police officers waited in the corridor of the hospital without entering the room. As time passed, Wendell saw a pregnant woman being sent to the living room in a hurry. There seemed to be some problems. Klein's giving birth to Klein right now. And they needed help with the labor process. And why is he giving himself a hard labor? Like, why is Klein making everything so awful for himself in this town? I don't get it. After a while, he heard the sound of a baby crying, an announcement of new life coming into the world. At this moment, Tracy happened to come out. "Do you feel it? Life's beauty?" Wendell said to Tracy solemnly. Why is it giving a woman's purpose is to be a mother? Wendell, I like you. Don't ruin this for me. As Tracy listened to the baby's cries amidst the howling wind and rain, her expression was clearly touched. Her face had already been wiped clean, making her look very clean and simple. After a few seconds, Tracy returned to the sense that nodded to Wendell before saying thank you. This time, she was no longer numb, blank, and reclusive. Wendell's not really... Here's the thing. Wendell doesn't give Lord of Storms. I feel like he should be part of, like, Earth Mother, or he should convert to, Evernight. Stay away from, Lord of Storms, please. After doing what was necessary, Wendell walked to the street side and prepared to take a rental carriage back to the Iris's Hotel. However, in the middle of this stormy night, there were no pedestrians or carriages on the road. This is a disadvantage of a small city. It's not convenient enough. Wendell muttered. He opened the umbrella and he brought with him and made his way back to the Iris's Hotel. As a former sheriff, he had the memory in the mystical sense of the route he had taken before. He wasn't worried about getting lost in a small city. At this moment, the storm had already reduced significantly. However, the strong winds continued to sweep past Wendell, causing rain to fall off of him. This caused Wendell to raise his right hand and block his chest. That confidential document was hidden on the inside of the clothing. Wendell had previously kept the document close to him, even when he was sleeping, nor allowing it to be separated from him. From this reason, he had already developed a habit. As long as he was corresponding self-reminders, he wouldn't turn over once he fell asleep. After walking for about 15 minutes the small town of Utopia, Wendell saw the Iris's Hotel. At that moment, his top hat and clothes were drenched due to the strong winds. This made him a little worried that the confidential documents would be damaged by the water. Strictly speaking, I have already violated the rules of the mission, but how could I not help a lady like her? This is what a gentleman should do. Wendell was slightly vexed, but he didn't regret it at all. After entering the room, he immediately removed his jacket and took out the document, placing it on the table. The envelope containing the document was already visibly soaked, but there were quite a few places that seemed to tear with a little force. Wendell immediately rang the bell to call for an attendant to ask for a gas stove, hoping to raise the temperature of the room and accelerate the air drying process of the sealed documents. In the process of waiting, he realized that the silence expected from the middle of the night wasn't there. It wasn't as if the screams of the police arrived to cause the tenant and nearby residents to wake up without being able to fall asleep. The howling winds lessened significantly, and Wendell could hear the children crying, married couples arguing, and the sound of wooden violin being played. Immediately stopping the footsteps of the stairs and the occasional sound of discussion, they were sometimes suppressed and sometimes raised without realizing it. He didn't feel anything about this lively scene. He just felt that it was noisy and prevented him from calming down. After a while, the attendant brought over a coal stove. Wendell relaxed and asked casually, "Do you know that Miss Tracy?" The thin attendant shook his head no. He then added, "I heard that she's a local, but I've been living outside the plantations outside the city before this year." "What do you know about her?" Wendell asked subconsciously. "She comes to our hotel 3 to 5 times a month with the dead man." The waiter suddenly sighed. "She's not happy at all." Wendell was silent for a few seconds before dismissing the attendant and returning to the desk. Seconds ticked by, and the envelope outside the confidential document gradually dried up. At this moment, the inside and the outside of the hotel had become relatively quiet. Only the sound of rain falling and the sound of windows being rattled by the winds could be heard. The window was full of spirit as he recalled everything that had happened. He sighed for Miss Tracy's life and flipped through the envelope. At this moment, he realized that some damage had appeared on the bottom of the part of the envelope, revealing a piece of paper inside. Wendell frowned, knowing that this was about to be a punishment. Of course, the punishment won't be too heavy, as if the document was to be distributed and confidential enough, he wouldn't be the only one dispatching it. Wendell had originally planned on maintaining this present state and showing the damaged situation during the handover. However, when he swept his gaze, he saw the word on the document through the hole. Utopia. Wendell's nerves tightened as he felt as the sound of the wind rain outside suddenly stopped. I'm gonna do it like that. I just realized I haven't ate anything today. I should probably do that. What is the confidential document that I'm dispatching mentioning Utopia? What's so special at this place? Many thoughts flashed through Wendell's mind as he heard a buzzing sound. At that moment, he felt as though he was going to fall sick from overexertion. Wendell quickly forced himself to calm down. He carefully recalled the experience he had encountered after coming to Utopia, and he discovered that there were no problems with every detail. There were all things that might encounter in daily life. The only thing that made him uneasy was that his arrival was too coincidental. It was common for the steam locomotive to stop at the last minute due to the storm, but to stop somewhere related to the confidential document in his hand couldn't be explained away with coincidence. Wendell stared at the confidential document on the table in solemn expression. He hesitated as to whether he should open them and read them carefully. Perhaps it's just a passing mention of Utopia. My actions will severely violate eternal affairs. Perhaps this is a report of a certain intelligence agency's secret investigation Utopia. The contents will decide whether I survive to a certain extent or die. After struggling for a while, Wendell looked out the window with a dark night sky and reached for the document. Only to be alive could one consider the punishment. Having made up his mind, Wendell stiffly moved the envelope outside and flipped through the typed files inside. As he read, his hands trembling inside, he felt a chill run down his back. Even the burning furnace didn't help. No matter which angle he read it from, the confidential report in his hand indicated there was something wrong with Utopia, the entire town. Dude, that would have been actually so smart. And I understand because, like, we're in Klein's mind, we have to, like, understand it. But how cool would it have been if we, like, discovered Utopia first and then we found out it was Klein's ritual? So, like, we just had this whole, like, city and all this weird shit happening. And we were just like, whoa. No matter which angle he read it from, the confidential report in his hands indicated there was something wrong with Utopia, the entire town. This might be a city that didn't exist in the real world. Wendell felt his mouth go dry as though he heard the footsteps of death slowly approaching him with a sickle. Instinctively, he wanted to get up at the end, but controlled himself and didn't act rashly. This was because he could feel pairs of eyes staring at him in the darkness outside, the room upstairs, and the corridor outside. What should I do? Up until now, nothing abnormal happened. This means that if I don't know anything, it's possible that I'll be safe and welcome daybreak. I've read through all the information. If I rashly show... Oh my god, there we go. And if I rashly show... Where was I? What should I do now? Up until now, nothing abnormal happened. This means that if I don't know anything, it's possible that if I stay safe until daybreak, I've read through the information. If I rashly show that I already know what the strange environment around me, it would only cause danger and erupt ahead of time. However, I can't just do nothing. I can't just do anything and leave my fate to luck. Wendell recalled all of the dangers he had experienced before and quickly made up his mind. He was prepared to immediately return to the steam locomotive and stay far away from Utopia to a certain extent. At least most of the people there were normal, while the city was full of danger. Of course, Wendell couldn't just run back like that. He had to act normal, as though he had left the hotel in the middle of the night to return to the steam locomotive station. Amidst his thoughts, Wendell put away the confidential report and stood up calmly. He put on his coat and put on his top hat. Then, with his luggage in one hand and the umbrella in the other, he calmly walked to the door and turned to the doorknob. At that moment, the corridor was dark. It was only a few gas lamps on both sides, and the corridor, giving off light, was bright enough and added signs of human life to the silent environment in which he could hear a pin drop. When Wendell entered the corridor and the wooden floor beneath his feet made a silent creaking sound, it was so clean in the silent night that it traveled far into the distance. With the slight frown, Wendell intentionally took a normal step forward and approached the staircase in the middle of the corridor. He walked without any worries and had no intention of acting furtively. As he saw the stairs getting closer, he suddenly heard a squeaking sound behind them. "Sir, where are you going?" A slightly hoarse and intermediate male voice walked in, and I went higher with the voice. Wendell's ears. Wendell's body stiffened as he slowly turned back and saw the wooden door of the service room open. An attendant came out and stood in the shadows of the door. He quickly smiled and calmly said, "I have an important item on the steam locomotive. I'm afraid that someone would take it away, so I have no choice but to return now." At this point, he softly grumbled, "A murder happened at the hotel. I don't want to stay here anymore. I can't sleep at all." "I'm very sorry." The attendant bowed slightly and responded, "I won't spread the news." Wendell nodded and promised, then walked back up the stairs. Perhaps it was due to the dim light in the night. He walked very carefully. Every step was like walking on the edge of a precipice. One step, two step, three step. Wendell, who had been on guard towards the attendant behind him, finally returned to the first floor. At that moment, not a single person was present in the hotel lobby. All the items were hidden in the darkness, and the faint light from outside cast a blurry silhouette, just like the monsters eager to devour people. Wendell looked ahead and walked through the dark lobby before reaching the door. And just as he pulled open the door and went out, he suddenly heard some rustling sounds behind him. It was as if there was rats moving around, or it was as if someone was approaching him with light footsteps. The back of Wendell's head went numb, but he held back the impulse to make a dash for it. He raised his head, normally, to look up at the sky when it already stopped raining. Then, he inhaled the cold, fresh air and made his way to the steam locomotive station. He quickened his pace, looking like he was afraid of the night and eager to end the journey. As he walked, Wendell saw the signboard from the corner of his eye, Utopia Telegraph Office. In the telegraph office, perhaps I can sneak in and send an emergency telegraph to Backland headquarters and Escalon military base. That way I can look forward to the rescue from demigods. If I'm really trapped here and unable to leave, this will be the only way to save myself. Wendell thought for a moment before taking a few steps diagonally. Arriving at the entrance of Utopia Telegraph Office, he wasn't in a hurry to find a place to sneak in. Instead, he focused his attention and listened to the movements inside. Following that, he heard intermediate sounds of heavy breathing. This made Wendell occasionally feel like there was no one inside at the times. He felt that there was more than one person inside. Suddenly, the sound of breathing stopped. All of Wendell's hair stood up on the end. His intuition told him that the figure was standing quietly behind the door of the telegraph office. Without any hesitation, Wendell immediately gave up his thoughts of sending the telegram. He walked past the door and continued proceeding forward. For the rest of the journey, even a gust of wind left Wendell tremble in fear. He was afraid of encountering an unknown danger. Time passed slowly as Wendell experienced the torment. Finally, he reached the entrance of the steam locomotive station and saw that the door was tightly shut. He couldn't enter. This wasn't a problem for Wendell. The first passed to the umbrella in left hand, carrying his luggage. Then went to the side and found a wall. With the press of his palm, he rose into the air and easily flipped over. After landing his feet firmly on the ground, Wendell heaved a sigh of relief and began walking towards the platform at an unhurried pace. This reminds me, this section right here reminds me, I can't remember what the town was. It was in Volume 3, when Klein was in this, island town, and he was trying to get into the telegram office, and everybody was being really fucking weird. Bancy Harbor, that was it. Thank you. This reminds me of when Klein was in Bancy Harbor that one time, and everybody was, really creepy, and I didn't like it. This wasn't a problem for Wendell. He first passed the umbrella to his left hand and was carrying his luggage. He then went to the side and found a wall. With this press of his palm, he rose to the air and easily flipped over. After landing to his feet firmly on the ground. Yeah, I feel like he probably took the eeriness from when he wrote the Bancy Harbor section and used this, because they're very similar. This wasn't a problem for Wendell. He first passed the umbrella to his left and then carried his luggage. Then went to the side of the fountain wall with the press of his palm. He rose to the air and easily flipped over. After landing his feet firmly on the ground, Wendell heaved a sigh of relief and began walking towards the platform at the unhurried pace. At that moment, an inaudible sound of footsteps could be heard behind him. "What are you doing here?" A deep and hoarse voice rang out. Wendell's toes tightened as cold sweat broke out on his back. He didn't hesitate as he prepared to get violent. He made his body turn slowly and stiffly. The first thing entered his eyes was a classic glass lantern, followed by a staff member from before. Wendell exhaled and grumbled. "It's not appropriate for you to appear in such an environment at such a night. As a gentleman, you have to avoid scaring others." "I'm not a gentleman," the staff member replied in an unfriendly manner. Wendell pointed at the corner of the platform. "I'm going to the bathroom." He had already observed the platform's environment and laid out the platform earlier that day. "Then, why are you here?" the worker asked. "I'm lost," Wendell answered simply. Following that, he ignored the staff and walked towards the bathroom. Behind him, the staff member watched silently without saying a word. This gave Wendell a lot of mental stress, but he maintained very well. In the bathroom, under the illumination of the wall lamps, Wendell took nearly a minute to relieve the tension in his body and successfully peed. After returning to the steam locomotive, Wendell finally found a sense of security as he looked at the passengers lying on their beds. In the next few hours, he didn't sleep at all and was on guard against any accidents. Just as Wendell grasped the passengers, the time slowed down and the sky gradually brightened and dispersed in the darkness. In the next 2 hours, the travelers who had gone to Utopia returned one after another. Some brought a bottle of local red wine, some looked haggard. They looked like they had been beaten up or were hungover. Wendell was very wary of them, but he could discover anything unusual in the details. Finally, the whistle sounded and the steam locomotive slowly began to move. Amidst the chugging sounds, the train left Utopia Station. After that, they went through another dark, gloomy weather. Fortunately, no thunderstorms descended, and the sun quickly pierced through the clouds, illuminating the ground. For Wendell, all of this was normal. It had been like this since he arrived in Utopia last night. If not for the confidential report, which was hidden near his chest, he definitely wouldn't have believed that there was any problem with Utopia. When the steam locomotive reached the next stop, one that everyone was familiar with, Wendell finally relaxed as he felt that his brain ached with a throb, as though he had been drained of his energy. As this moment, he quickly recalled the experience in Utopia. As he recalled, Wendell suddenly sat up straight. He had used the excuse of going to the bathroom last night, but he carried his luggage and an umbrella. He didn't look like a passenger who was just coming down from the steam train. The station worker didn't realize this, or rather, he had already discovered it, but he did not expose him for some unknown reason. Crazy. I kind of love this. Everything that Klein has been terrified of this entire time, he's now just using it to terrify the masses with his little town and his powers and everything that he has, and I really love this book, Klein. Oh my god. Oh. There we go, fixed it. I think. Maybe not. All of a sudden, the muscles on Wendell's back began to tense up as if they were about to explode. He was shocked and doubtful as several guesses flashed through his mind. Guesses flashed through his mind. The residents of Utopia are monsters in human skin. They usually look normal. Once they encounter blind spots in logic, they would have to show sides of it that is... But once they encounter blind spots in logic, they would show a side that is different from an ordinary person, ignoring the points that are obviously problematic. Or perhaps the staff realized that I was lying and was unwilling to deal with me, so he pretended not to see me and let me go. But why? Yes, carrying my luggage to the bottom can be explained away as me being afraid of losing my luggage, but the entire platform is sheltered. There's no need to take the umbrella. Besides, the rain has already stopped. Wendell instinctively turned his gaze out the window, only to see the sunlight shining in the platform he was at. One by one, passengers waited to be ordered behind the safety line, completely different from the dark and gloomy vibes that Utopia gave off. He exulted and silently relaxed. This isn't Utopia. I've already left. Wendell muttered to himself and wiped away the cold sweat that had swept out of his forehead. When he recalled the oversight earlier, it was as if he had fallen into a nightmare that could wake up for no matter how hard he tried. After a while, Wendell stood up and decided to smoke on the platform and ease his mood. The tobacco comforted him greatly, allowing him to recall his past experiences in Utopia. During the process, he gained inspiration for his encounter. Maybe it's because I sincerely helped Tracy, so the staff members intentionally ignored my problematic actions and let me go. Compared to the entire population of Utopia being monsters hiding underneath human skin, Wendell had more willing to accept his explanation. At this moment, from the corner of his eyes, he saw the conductor taking a group of people into the corner. Wendell took a few steps forward, trying to hear what they were saying. With the help of this hearing that transcended and normal limits of hearing, he vaguely heard the conversation from the distance and would incur suspicion. Last night, the station, Utopia, doesn't exist in the kingdom. Please keep it a secret. Wendell's brows twitched slightly. Based on the description of the documents near his chest, he roughly understood that the train conductor was talking about. They were saying that the kingdom didn't have a station known as Utopia at all, and last night, the steam locomotive had gone missing. At that moment, the strong sense of horror surged through Wendell's heart again. He felt that it was his greatest blessing to be able to leave Utopia alive. Alfred spent nearly a week before returning to Backlund from Escalon Harbor. This was because he had visited the family, deceased comrades, and old friends and elders who had returned to their fief for vacation, and some of the family business partners along the way. This is even more tiring than participating in battle, Alfred grumbled to his father. Earl Hall smiled and pointed to the staircase. Return to your room and get some rest. We'll talk in the study later. He was quite satisfied with the mental state and progress of his second son. Alfred surveyed the area and asked with a smile, "Where's the most dazzling jewel of Backlund?" He paused for a moment before adding, "What about Hibbert?" Earl Hall laughed and said, "Audrey went to her foundation and will only return in the afternoon. She kept complaining that you couldn't provide her with a definitive schedule, preventing her from knowing when you would arrive. Hibbert is now a cabinet secretary. He's very busy." Alfred nodded and returned to his room and showered. He changed into a shirt, vest, and formal suit. "I prefer East Balham's casualness." He looked into the mirror and smiled as he adjusted. "This outfit makes you look more like a noble," his adjustment said as he handed him the documents in hand. "General, this is from MI9. MI9? Alfred thoughtfully destroyed the seal in the envelope. "There's a result regarding the investigation of Utopia," that quickly. Before he could finish his sentence, he pulled out the documents and flipped through it. During the process, Alfred flipped through the pages slower and slower. In the end, he read it again, and from the first page. The main content of the investigation was divided into two parts. The first was regarding that MI9 members who had dispatched Alfred's report. He had accidentally entered Utopia and witnessed a murder case. He managed to forcefully escape the middle of the night and return to the steam locomotive. The second was the railway in Desi Bay, which led to Backlund that didn't have a stop named Utopia Station along the way. Nor was there a harbor known as Utopia in the Berserk Sea. The subsequent investigations didn't find any traces. The two cases didn't exceed the limits of Alfred's imagination. What surprised him was the criminal involvement in the murder. Her name was Tracy. She was the owner of a hotel. She had received middle-class education and graduated from a grammar school. After that, she became a mistress of a businessman. Recently, she had been trying to free herself from his identity. This was identical to the owner of the Harbor Hotel, Tracy, that Alfred had met earlier. Every detail matched. As a result, Alfred determined that the culprit behind the murder was Tracy, the beautiful woman who had received a certain degree education who was able to produce sad music in the middle of the night. Is this her backstory? Alfred muttered to himself silently. This made the residents of Utopia seem very realistic. It wasn't what Alfred had expected. An illusion. In other words, after the outsiders left, the inhabitants of Utopia continued to lead their own lives. They had their own love, hatred, pains, and sorrow. They had all sorts of experiences. Apart from Utopia seeming to not exist in the real world, it was similar to the ordinary town of the Lowen Kingdom. Perhaps Utopia is real. Everyone is real. However, if one wants to enter the town, they have to be in the right place at the right time. Alfred nodded indiscernibly and put away the investigation report he had received from MI9. To him, even if this matter ended here, he had no intention to investigate further. One had to know that the southern continent there were countless bizarre instances and phenomena. If one was too curious, it would only bring him greater danger than he imagined. After adjusting his clothes and mood, Alfred came to his father's study and knocked on the door with the curled fingers. "Come in." Earl Hall's voice rang out. Alfred tidied his blonde hair, pushed open the door, and sat down. Earl Hall smiled at him and said, "You are already a man." "No one would say such words to a man," Alfred replied without any reservations. "In my heart, you're still that rebellious youth," Earl Hall said with a smile. "You're already a Sequence 5 Beyonder." Alfred replied with a double entendre. Yes, I am a real knight. Earl Hall nodded and suddenly sighed. You should have experienced a lot of hardship. From what I know, no matter if it's a position or war, they will bring serious damage to people, from their bodies to their minds. Or potion or war. Everyone undergoes a lot of pain in their lives, Alfred said with a sigh. He used the low-end-styled euphemism. After a pause, he added, compared to what I left Backland, my present state is even better. As long as I grasp a method properly, I don't need to worry too much on the impact of the madness at my level. Earl Hall didn't continue as the matter and instead said, Your sister has also become a Beyonder. Oh? Alfred was shocked at first, but then he remembered something. He said that in an annoyance. I thought she just changed her hobby. From the looks of it, Audrey's adventure has a little bit of your help, Earl Hall said, seemingly enlightened. I hope you can talk to her about how dangerous, crazy, and painful it is about the sequence potions. Let her remain at her current level. Hate to break it to you, bud, but she's actually the most powerful person in your household. In the evening, in Audrey's small study room, Alfred, why are you looking at me? Audrey, who had changed into her clothes, led Susie to open the door for her brother. She was waiting for her brother for a few moments. I have something to warn you of. Alfred walked into the study and casually pulled a chair over him. Audrey smiled and pointed at the golden retriever. Do you need Susie to leave? Alfred couldn't help but smile as he looked at the obedient golden retriever who was sitting by her side. Her eyes filled with the look of sentience. There's no need for that. I believe it won't eavesdrop on our conversation. She casually corrected him. Audrey casually corrected him. After the noble girl sat opposite him, Alfred sighed inwardly. After not seeing her for a few years, his younger sister was no longer as tender as before. Regardless of her looks or temperament, she had already reached a level that brought about amazement. She was no longer the little girl from the past. Alfred retracted his gaze and asked casually, I heard that became a Beyonder. Yes, Audrey nodded frankly. Alfred had originally planned on asking what sequence she was, but after some thought he felt that it was too direct. It was easier for her to flare up, so he deliberated over his words and said, You should be a Beyonder of the Spectator pathway, right? The Rainbow Salamander has similar powers. The Rainbow Salamander was a gift from Alfred to his sister. After Audrey gave an affirmative answer, Alfred joked. Can you do a treatment on the mind domain now? Most Beyonders, including me, need help in this aspect. Yet, I forgot to tell you that I'm already a Sequence 5 disciplinary paladin of the Arbiter pathway. Audrey pursed her lips and smiled. I'm a qualified psychiatrist who has undergone professional training. You can verify this with father and mother. She's already a Sequence 7. Alfred's expression gradually turned solemn. Audrey, I have to remind you that the potions do not only bring about strength. Having said that, he paused and observed his sister's reaction. He realized that Audrey wasn't impatient at all and was listening very seriously. Every potion contains madness and can lead to a loss of control. I've seen similar situations before, more than once. They happen to my enemies and they happen to my friends. No one is spared. Who's gonna tell him? Who's gonna tell him? Alfred amalgamated his experiences in East Balam and began explaining the dangers of the potion in detail. During this process, he realized that his sister Audrey wasn't the only one listening attentively. Furthermore, Susie, the golden retriever, appeared extremely quiet. MI9's office building was located in Beloto Street, in Westboro, and it was an inconspicuous 3-story building. The entrance didn't show any signs of its identity. It hung a door sign 9. The core of this office building was underground, and above it was a clerk's. Of course, most of the Beyonders who were under MI9 wouldn't go underground for no reason. The environment there wasn't too good, and the atmosphere was oppressive. It was possible that the accident... Where was I? It was possible that the accident could happen due to the failure in watch over the sealed artifacts. Shio was now deputy team leader of the National Security and Counter-Espionage Team. She was in charge of a rather small-scale Beyonder team responsible for handling espionage cases regarding Intis in the greater area of Backland. There's a mission here. Her superior MI9 deputy director and team leader of the National Security and Counter-Espionage Team, Lieutenant General Pantic, picked up a document and handed it across the desk opposite him. Is it very urgent? Shio received and asked cautiously. Lieutenant General Pantic was a local Lowen man with a case of severe hairline recession. That's my guy. He picked up a white porcelain coffee cup and took a sip. Not at all. It's quite low risk. In fact, the mission will be sent to all members, hoping that someone will be able to complete it by luck. This description was out of Shio's expectations, but she didn't open the dossier and Spot that directly replied, I will inform the team members. Shio returned to her own room after leaving Lieutenant General Pantic's office. When she threw herself on the seat, she seemed to have it hidden herself. Shio quickly browsed through the document with her hand and roughly understood why the deputy director said that. The utopia that needed investigations didn't seem to be anywhere near the northern and southern continent, nor were there any of the I don't know why I went Australian there. Didn't seem to be anywhere in the northern and southern continent, nor were there any of the known islands of the 5 seas. In the past 2 weeks, many people have entered the southern so-called utopia, but the way they entered was completely different. Some entered from the berserk Sonia Sea, waters arriving in terrifying storms. Some were midway on a railway that led to Desipe to Backland due to the heavy storm. They were delayed and stopped at the city. Others were in Civilis County, and they entered because they were lost. Up to now, no one has been affected by the damage or mental influence. It's no wonder Deputy Director Pantic said that the danger level is very low. Also, there's no way to conclude the rules regarding this case, making it difficult for one to find the true location of Utopia. There's 4. Therefore, there's no way for them to send people to investigate. Yes, I can only tell all members of the situation, hope that one of them will chance upon Utopia and carefully gather information in secret when they are there. Shio put down the document in her hand and stood up regretfully, preparing to inform the Beyonders under her. She was regretful that the mission was so difficult and that she almost couldn't see hope. This made her unable to accumulate more merit points. In the past half year, Shio had been very busy every day in order to deal with the pending apocalypse. As she dealt with MI9's matters, she compelled the mission Mr. Fool had given her so as to accumulate contributions on both sides and exchange the formula and beyond characteristics of the imperative mage formula and beyond characteristics to fulfill the wish to become a demigod. And up until now, Shio was still lacking both fronts, especially in MI9. I still didn't make any significant contributions. Shio couldn't see any hope. If not for the generous salary from MI9 and all kinds of benefits that came with it, and how she could rely on her status and identity to monopolize a large amount of information so as to help her complete the missions given by Mr. Fool, and Shio yearned to resign to become a bounty hunter again. That way she would have more freedom. I can ask about this case at the next tarot gathering. Perhaps Mr. World will have some clues. As Shio thought, she pushed open the door and the room where her team members were. After assigning the Utopia mission, Shio specifically instructed, if the situation isn't right, even if you have the chance to enter Utopia, you can give up immediately. The town of unknown authenticity hasn't shown any danger. Perhaps it's because it's already been triggered. Because it hasn't been triggered. After busying herself for a while more, Shio finally ended the day in exhaustion. She returned home 7:30 and she had dinner with her mother, her brother, and Fours. She enjoyed a limited amount of relaxation. At midnight, she washed up and walked to the bedroom window. She grabbed the curtain and prepared to draw it. During this process, Shio naturally cast her gaze outside and discovered that the crimson moon in the sky had already turned bigger at some point in the time. Furthermore, the color had clearly deepened as though it was flowing blood. A blood moon. Shio suddenly turned her head to look at the next door in concern. She was a little worried about her good friend's condition. Good friend. However, she quickly recalled that Fours was a Sequence 4 demigod and no longer feared the effects of the full moon's ravings. In the room next door, Fours was lying in bed, taking in the blood moon outside. As she endured the pain of her head being pricked by needles, she heard Mr. Dorr say, although going from Sequence 3 to Sequence 2 is indeed a qualitative change, going from an incorporeal mythical creature to a real mythical creature, I believe that Sequence 4 and Sequence 3 has a qualitative change as well. It can even be said that the Sequence 3 is the best level in the Beyonder pathway. At this level, there is no need to rely on the external forces to resist the madness and inclination towards losing control. There is no need to endure the torment every second and minute. They will also possess beyond her powers that completely exceed that of the ordinary person. They are more godlike and human. Furthermore, they can obtain the small number of anchors to stabilize their mental state. If not for the fact that most Sequence 3 Beyonders don't have long enough lives, with that being difficult for them to live more than 500 years, I believe that it won't be any saints who have the motive to advance an angel. Yeah, Fours nodded, indicating that she had already understood. At the same time, her forehead twitched slightly and she yawned secretively. She was already a little accustomed to the pain from her direct conversation with Mr. Dorr. Mr. Dorr continued, "The apprentice pathway Sequence 3 is Wanderer. This means that the spirit world can no longer trap you. You can enter the cosmos, travel the astral world, and head to the different planets, and see true dead silence, true baronesses, true magnificence, and completely different civilizations. Only after experiencing it for yourself will you understand how insignificant the world you live in is." Oh, okay. Mr. Dorr briefly explained his experience in the showcase of the magnificence and beauty of the cosmos, displayed the stillness and charm of the different civilizations. Yeah, and look at you now. Look at you now, Mr. Dorr, you're trapped. Bitch ass. This made Forrest fall into a trance. If not for the sharp... Actually, I kind of really like him, so I take it back. If not for the sharp throbbing pain in her head, still reminding her she would have even forgot about the speaker was a dangerous king of angels. "As long as you help me escape, I'll give you the potion." Here's the thing, the door pathway actually is really fucking cool. I feel like I would maybe choose that one. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like which pathway I would choose and which one I would go with. Because this one actually is kind of cool. And Wanderer would be really dope. Paid in advance. At the end of the full moon's ravings, Mr. Dorr gave another promise. I know, I'm like, I kind of would choose Demoness, but I also do really like the idea of the planter pathway. Because I feel like it's chill. Like, there's not too much to it. I'm just like herbologist. It's fun. And then like door pathway would also be really cool. I don't know if I would survive, but I could try. And then also I like the sun pathway. But yeah. I just want to be corrupted, honestly. I picked Demoness, Planter, Door. Spectator would also be good because I do want that. It really makes me look forward to it. Forrest marveled sincerely. When Mr. Dorr's voice gradually weakened and disappeared, Forrest suddenly pulled out the pillow with her waist lying down. In less than 3 minutes, she fell asleep in peace. To her... I'm getting stalled. Don't worry, I'm getting stalled. I'm yip-yapping about what pathway I would be. I think the only pathway I wouldn't want to be is like prisoner pathway. I don't really want to do that one. Not really sure how I feel about like the what path, like criminal pathway. I don't really know. Don't really think I want that one. Here's the thing. I don't think I'd want to do hunter pathway because it's kind of basic. I also don't know. I just don't really fuck with the hunter pathway. It'd be cool for like the yaoi part, but I'd have to actually deal with everything else, so I just don't know if it's worth it. And that would like literally be the only reason I would do it. I think that would be it. What other pathway would I do? Here's the thing, but I would want to be a sequence 4 hunter because I feel like that would be cool. But I don't want to, no, because I don't want to be a man. I'm okay. I also just don't want to deal with that pathway. I could just switch to the neighboring pathway. No, I think if I was to choose, it would be demoness, planter, or door. I think if I had to choose pathways, it would be demoness, planter, or door pathway. And we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. A huge blood-colored moon hung at the edge of the cliff, illuminating the swamp below. The swamp was dark red and constantly bubbling as though lava was boiling at the bottom of it. At a glance, there was no end to the swamp, like a vast ocean. The stone fell from the edge of the cliff and into the swamp. The next second, the bubble appeared and silently burst, producing a blood-stained infant. The baby staggered, swamped towards the cliff, and attempted to climb it. The stone beneath Emlyn White's feet shattered as he fell off the cliff and into the swamp. The sanguine Earl suddenly jolted awake from his dream and looked around in horror and confusion. Bro. After confirming that this was his room, where there were many extremely familiar dolls and different sizes of... Oh yeah, I forgot that... No, I'm good. Emlyn slowly exhaled and said to himself with a rather solemn expression, that dream wasn't simple. As a shaman king, he had a good understanding of the dreamscape. This could be a so-called divine revelation, but there was not air quotations around that, but I didn't receive any revelations. Emlyn thought for a few seconds, but couldn't come up with an answer. Then he decided to ignore the problem and prepare to ask Father Trotsky what he had in that time. The incomplete moon that has a blood-red colors faded, illuminating the garden in the Cathedral of Waves. Alger reached out his hand and grabbed the note, delivered by the gale, and read it. Verdu was looking for a pirate ship or a smuggling ship to Bansi. Bansi Harbor had yet been rebuilt, and there was no liners from all over the world that headed there. Verdu, who treasured his limited teleportation opportunities, could rely on extremely normal methods. Head to Bansi. Alger immediately frowned. He knew that Bansi meant that he didn't understand why Verdu wanted to go to Bansi. There should be nothing there. No, even if the church has leveled Bansi, there's still something abnormal about it. Furthermore, the church didn't investigate what problems Bansi had hidden in the past. As a cardinal, Alger was qualified to read through some confidential documents, including the records of the action the Church of the Lord of Storms had done with dealing with Bansi. In addition, he also learned more from Mr. Fool in the world, Cameron Sparrow. Oh my god. I love him. After some thought, Alger quickly came to the decision he planned on getting his shadow guard to arrange the pirate ship for Verdu. In this aspect, Alger knew many key people to aid him and didn't need him to show his face in person to use his name. Of course, smuggling ships in the Roast Archipelago was often equivalent to pirate ships. This is the last chapter. Last chapter. Last chapter. Okay, I can also just... Okay. Is it this one? Okay. Does something happen in this chapter? I'm scared now. Okay. I'm sitting on the chair in the police station looking... Stop! Why? Wait. Why did we change POVs? Oh, I'm so scared. Why did we change POVs? I'm sitting on the chair in the police station looking at the mouths of two men in black and white checkered uniforms opposite me. It's like they're talking about something. The man on the left has a cold expression on his face, as if he has been through too many unfortunate events. The man on the right is a little too inexperienced, and there's a hint of pity in his eyes. I don't feel any pain, nor did I regret delivering the final stab. At that moment, I even felt that I had been liberated. A warm blood that sprayed on my body was like salvation from the gods. I only regret my fervent pursuit of money in my youth. I had sacrificed my dignity, my body, and my freedom. Over the past few days at the police station, I've had enough peace and quiet. I had the opportunity to ponder this question at a deeper level, far deeper than whatever I've been thinking about over the years. Me having a weak will and being immature were the source of my mistakes I made, but they weren't the only reason. Ever since I was a child, all the education I received told me that working and striving hard is for the big house, for the full floor-to-ceiling windows that let in plenty of light, to have more than 3 servants, a lawn, a garden that I can call my own, silver-plated with even gold-plated cutlery, be able to host a banquet filled with delicacies, run balls that are filled with melodious music. The newspaper magazines I'd read also told me over and over again that only those that showed a sufficient level of decency can be called middle class. They were true pillars of support for this kingdom. They are people of high class, excellence, zero mediocrity and integrity, while having compassion and knowledge. At the same time, they also told me what decency was. It's wearing a beautiful dress, matching expensive skincare products, cosmetics, and exquisite fashion handbags for different occasions. It was to attend concerts, high teas, and gatherings filled with class. And all of this translated means gold pounds, and more gold pounds. I have to admit that pursuing the better life is intrinsical for everyone. However, when the influence on a girl tells her in every aspect that when the mainstream views of society are all about appearance, exquisiteness, and elegance, it's very difficult not to have her thoughts become influence. I don't know what the phenomenon is called. I only know that if this can be changed, then a tragedy like mine will continue happening more and more often. When this happens, someone would definitely curse. Look at all those gold-digging women selling out their souls. Subconsciously, I turn around and see the beautiful and bustling world outside. I see the bright red blood flowing in this world. Miss Tracy, are you listening to us? A voice distracts my thoughts coming from the silently inexperienced policeman. I grin at him, not telling him I'm thinking about some philosophical questions. What a joke. A gold digger who sold her soul is actually thinking of such inane matters when she's being interrogated by the police. The policeman nods and says to me, Miss Tracy, you'll be put on trial soon. We'll arrange a lawyer for you. I'm sorry, we didn't manage to retain the witness. Just having his testimony isn't in your favor. It's okay, I say quietly. Oh my God, she's gonna get charged. I will try my best to defend myself and repeat for the crimes I've committed. I only hope that I can restart a life anew. I think for a moment and curl the corners of my lips. I say for 2 officers, can you borrow a few books from the library for me while I want to go on trial? Yes. Phenomena of sociology and education. Oh my God, no. At that moment, I see the 2 police officers in a daze and hint of yes, surprise. I sit in the far end of the molten table and hear Miss Judgment describe the Utopia incident. After she finishes, she looks around hoarsely and says, this is a ritual. Unsurprisingly, I see Miss Justice's gaze freeze. I can sense Mr. Hangman and Miss Justice looking over with a hint of speculation in their eyes. At this moment, I can almost guess what they're thinking. They definitely suspect that this is the World of Gammon Sparrow Sequence 1 ritual, and they are already long aware from the tops of the tarot gathering that the experience of a Sequence 0 true God makes it impossible for the Sequence 1 to exist. Regardless this matter, I have already prepared an explanation. It is to let them think about the ancient sun god and his 8 kings of angels. Unfortunately, no one raises any questions. They may have already made the connection of the king of angels, or perhaps they believe that the ritual involved being Utopia is mainly to help Mr. Fool awaken further. I look at the lady who is lost in thought. I ask after some deliberation, Miss Tracy, where... Oh my God. Where do your parents live? They've already passed away. The beautiful lady whose soul no longer belongs here replies with an ethereal voice. I lower my head and record it. Do you have any other relatives? The lady turns to look out the window and answer casually, no. I exchange look with my colleagues and raise my voice. Miss Tracy, are you listening to us? The lady opposite me retracts her distant gaze and smiles at me. I don't know what she's thinking about. She's so quiet, like a flower blooming alone in the night. The analogy comes from the analogy of poems. My brother told me about reading poems makes me more charming. Of course, up until now, the poems have only brought mostly mockery. All of the police officers believe that it's worthless. When I tell the lady opposite me the trial, I see a faint smile on her face as she pleads us to borrow a few books from the library, ones that I believe are difficult from the title. The smile and names on the book combine into indiscernible beauty. After sending Miss Tracy back to the temporary detention room, I pack up the materials for the case and prepare to pay a visit to the lawyer. It's something that had been predetermined long ago. I leaned back in my chair and listened to Moon Emlyn describe his dreams. After Father Trovsky's appraisal and dream had been comforted to have not originated from Earth Mother, this inevitability makes people cast their looks of surprise, superstition on the moon towards the state of prior being corrupted by the mother goddess of depravity. I'm nearly amused by my own thoughts. As an experienced seer, a master of deciphering dreams, I'm not held back by modesty. I frankly reveal what I know. The three possibilities are that the dreamscape is trying to bait you into exploring and pursuing something. To a certain extent, I can interfere with your fate. Secondly, the dreamscape hopes to interpret it deeply and understand it. Then, through this corruption in your indiscernible manner. Thirdly, you are worried about this matter becoming a beauty goddess, so you dreamed of a remarkable, terrifying scene. The third possibility doesn't need elaborating on. The action needs the first two possibilities the same. I don't think about it, don't investigate. There's no need to leave Backland. With that said, I see Emlyn nod without any hesitation. I know it's his way of handling things. Holy shit. A murder case. I browsed through the information on the case in my hands, and I used the charge of the tone to change the voice and express my doubts. You should hire a senior lawyer. I'm just a solicitor, and strictly speaking, I don't have the right to represent anyone in court. Of course, this is only a strictest of cases, but in reality, this never happens. As long as the case isn't too serious and doesn't involve the criminal courts, a solicitor can prove assistance to the court. The policeman in the black and white checkered uniform opposite me says with a smile, Utopia is only a small city. We don't have a senior lawyer. We'll have to hire them from elsewhere. Besides, this case is a case of self-defense. The sentence period will be very short, and the monetary aspects of this case doesn't even need to exceed £400. The trial can be done in a magistrate courts. When self-defense is deemed invalid, it'll be handed over to the criminal courts. He knows plenty. Is he planning on switching professions to become a lawyer? However, in normal circumstances, he still has a hand on homicidal cases and unjustifiable self-defense in criminal courts. This is the benefit of small city. There are many things that aren't that strict. I think for a moment and replied tersely. I'll try defending the client by claiming innocence. Also, please arrange to meet Miss Tracy as soon as possible. After flipping through the information from before, I'm already quite confident in the case, and the biggest problem now is whether Miss Tracy's image can lead to the sympathy of others. Although my solicitor license was forged from elsewhere, this cannot deny my professionalism. It just so happens that I made mistakes on the examination. Bancy. Verdu wants to go to Bancy. I sit at the bottom end of the long molten table and look at the hangman who has reported to Mr. Fool. I have some doubts about the development in the matter. Verdu, who's engrossed in mysticism and trying to save Mr. Dorr, does have a certain reason to search Bancy Harbor. Furthermore, he has stayed in Bancy for almost half a year, so it's very normal for him to come into contact with information about Bancy. The main problem is that the hangman's previous surveillance didn't provide any corresponding signs, making Verdu's actions seem a little out of place. The importance placed on this matter has to be raised. I nod inwardly and hear Mr. Fool instruct. Continue monitoring. Oh my god, because he's pretending to be witchmother. I play the 7-string guitar by the fountain in the municipal square. I use my knife and fork to slice the steak in the cathedral. I describe the teachings of the goddess to the believers. I reach out my right hand and leave the carriage with the help of the gentleman. I get to the new dress I've been eyeing for so long, and I can't wait to change into it. I stride forward with my 4 legs as I'm being chased by a child. I laugh loudly as I totter about and play with a dog. Suddenly, we tremble. We look up into the sky and see illusory thin lines drilling out from our bodies. They extend to the infinite height, extending beyond the grayish-white fog. They extend into the ancient palace and lands in the hands of the tall figure shrouded in fog. During this period of time, Klein's state has been very strange, as though he has completely transformed into thousands of lives. Every clone had their own will, thoughts, knowledge, and fate. However, above this collective consciousness was a primary consciousness that held control. It constantly surfaced all kinds of attack, as though it could be assimilated by the sea of consciousness that had been formed autonomously at any moment. However, it eventually withstood the barrage of attacks, allowing Klein to maintain a certain level of clarity. His true body had been lying underground in St. Ariana Cathedral. His consciousness would occasionally rise and intercept for Castle and occasionally sink into his body. All the scenes that the marionette clones experienced constantly flashed in his mind like a dream formed from large amounts of fragments. Whoa. Okay. All I'm hearing is that my everyone was Klein theory was not super off, because that's so cool. It's also really sad. Here's the thing. It's... No, like I said, I was like, I feel like everybody is Klein. Like, Klein is everybody. Bro, I wasn't that far off. I called this shit in, like, Volume 2, Volume 1. Actually, yeah, you know what? Fuck you guys. I called this in, like, Volume 2, Volume 1. It's really cool. It's also really sad. In, like, a way. It's kind of sad. Because, like, Klein, and I get it, because Klein's, like, ascending to godhood. He's not really a person anymore, he's just a concept. And, like, I guess, like, when you kind of get to that point, you start to lose your humanity, and you start to lose all of these things, but Klein really has, like, turned into just like an idea and a concept for everything else. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm trying to look for the artwork, because I want to see the artwork. Bro, it looks so cool. Klein. See, okay, but here's the thing. This is adding to my theory. Oh, I don't think I said this here. So I have a theory of how Klein's story is gonna end. I said this, I think we were like playing D&D. I actually don't remember, but I was chatting about it earlier. I used to think that Klein was gonna die. I used to thought that Klein was gonna die. Now I think that Klein is either gonna have like one of two options. Bear with me, I have theories. Option one, I think that Klein is going to either venture out into the cosmos and like go do his thing over there, and he's gonna travel. Option two, and after this, I'm probably like 75% sure this is how Klein's story ends. So I think that Klein is something's gonna happen where he's gonna have to go to sleep. And I thought about this after the whole Klein meeting Roselle thing, where like Roselle had to go to sleep. Dark Angel Sasori had to go to sleep. Klein is sleeping under the cathedral. Like, I think at the end of the book, Klein's gonna have to go into like a deep slumber or something, because there's gonna be a reason why he can't be in the mortal world anymore. Maybe because he got corrupted, or maybe because he's too powerful, or maybe because of something. Like, I think that Klein's gonna have to go into like a deep sleep of something, and he's not gonna be able to be there. Like, it's gonna be almost like a fate worse than death, where it's like he's not dead, but he's gone and you're never gonna see him again. And like he's gonna sleep for like thousands of years or whatever the fuck it is. It's either gonna be that, or he's gonna go venture out into the cosmos. And I feel like I'm leaning now more towards that option. And I thought about that after Klein and Roselle met together. So that's all. That's how I think the story's gonna end with Klein. Yeah, especially after this now, where he's like already starting to sleep, and he's already not a person anymore. Like, he's an idea, he's a symbol, he's a concept. He's everybody else, living a life through everybody else, but he's still just kind of there. So, like, that doesn't strike me as someone who's going to be a functioning member in the story going forward, and somebody who has to actually be taken out of the story, but, like, isn't going to die, because I feel like that'd be a cheap way to do it. They'll do something else where, like, he actually can't be there anymore, because he either is, like, the new celestial worthy, or he's the Lord of the Mysteries, or something like that. And he's just gotta go. He's gotta be taken out. So that's what I am wondering. Or he goes to sleep until the apocalypse. I don't know. Or, dude, okay, so here's the thing. What if Klein, I don't know, here's the thing, because I don't really know what the apocalypse is yet. Like, I know it's the gods coming down, I think. Unless it's been explained and I'm just a donkey. I think that Klein's gonna have to go to sleep because maybe he, like, will cause the apocalypse or something like that. So they're just like, hey, you gotta go. And that'll kind of be, like, what it is. Anyway, I've been looking at the camera. I haven't looked down at any of the comments. So I've been looking at the camera, but I'm gonna look down at the comments in 5 seconds here. So do whatever you have to do with that. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There you go. There's 59 chapters left. On Thursday, we're gonna finish volume 7. Then I'm going for a trip. So not totally sure how the breakdown of the volume 8 chapters are gonna go, but I will be reading those next week and the week following. And then we will have the finale on July 5th. Crazy. I'm so excited. Okay, I'm gonna go now. Thank you guys so much for joining. I'll see you on Thursday for volume 7 ending. Love y'all so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Have a wonderful rest of your night, whichever one you are at. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. I cannot push it to July 16th. It's gonna be on July 5th. Anyway, I gotta go. Bye-bye.